Dark Souls 3 was a masterpiece, one of my favorite games of all time, and the Ring City DLC was a great conclusion to not only the game, but the trilogy as a whole. And after it, well, there was a void left to be filled for the Souls-like genre. There were some pretty bad attempts like Lords of the Fallen and The Surge, but I'd say the first somewhat successful result released in 2019 in the form of Code Vein, also known as Dark Souls for Weebs. It had its issues, but ultimately, it wasn't a complete travesty like the previous two, so it was fairly well received. Last time I played this game, I was a teenager, but with the sequel upon us, I decided to revisit it to see how well it held up for me, and, well, that's about it. Enough stalling the opening, let's dive on in, shall we?
2 hours we're ready, against all odds our foes will pay, our aim is steady, we'll overcome what's in our way, what will stand against us, at all costs it's time to fight, set wrongs to right, in the flames of fury, the battle for our lives, hand in hand I know we'll conquer, we will destroy this nemesis, take up arms, we'll fight, no, never surrender, nothing will stand in our way. With adversaries, both at our front and at our back, we can't suppress them, always ready to attack. What will stand against us? At all costs, it's time to fight, set wrongs to right, in the flames of fury, the battle for our lives, hand in hand I know we'll conquer, we will destroy this nemesis, take up arms, we'll fight, no, never surrender, nothing will stand in our way. Battle for our lives, hand in hand I know we'll conquer, we will destroy this nemesis, take up arms, we'll fight, no, never surrender, nothing will stand in our way.
Good morning. Hey, can you hear me? Think back. Search your memory for an image of yourself.
The game begins with a character creator that's really in-depth, if you want to make an attractive waifu as your protagonist. I was honestly debating the character design I wanted to go with. I thought about making Sans, but bald isn't an option. Then I tried making Akiza from Yu-Gi-Oh, but that didn't look quite right either. So eventually I just kind of gave up and made a character that looks roughly like myself. Yes, I am that guy that always has sunglasses on his head. After that, you're given a tutorial where you get to go through the different blood codes, and you can kind of choose your favorite build of melee, guns, or mage, but it doesn't really matter because it's actually very easy to change your playstyle whenever you want. That's not a diss against this game, by the way. That's a praise because it means you can easily try new things and every new skill can be exciting, and while I always prefer melee, I usually like to incorporate a spell or two in my arsenal. This tutorial teaches you a few things, the basics of attacks, dodging, and parrying. Then we have skill use, which requires Ichor, which is essentially your MP of the game. You can restore Ichor with restoration items or by attacking the enemy repeatedly. And if you use a charge attack on an enemy, you can increase your maximum Ichor until you rest at a legally distinct bonfire. You also get that bonus if you repost the enemy or if you backstab them. So it always is good to be aggressive in this game. After the tutorial ends, we wake up passed out in a bad part of town without our memories alongside another girl who also doesn't have any memories. Guess it was a crazy Saturday night, huh? Not much to do right now, but quite literally stumble our way through the plot. So, keep on walking. And because dying next to a tree would make the game pretty short for a $60 experience, we get found by some raiders almost immediately. Convenient way to railroad the plot there, game. Then, after a series of cutscenes, we're finally forced into our first level, and we get our first party member of the game, Oliver Collins.
Oh, I'm Oliver Collins, by the way. Nice to meet you.
Oliver is a pretty tanky boy, not worrying too much about things like skills, and instead likes to focus on smashing things with his comedically oversized hammer. Honestly, he's more than qualified to handle anything that comes your way in the starting area without you needing to lift a finger. Which is good, because your starting weapon is an unupgraded metal pipe that somebody found. Not exactly lighting the world on fire. Though, hilariously, it ends up being one of the best weapons in the game for mage builds, and there's even a challenge to kill a super boss with just a pipe. I've done it before. Don't recommend it, but it's kind of funny. That being said, while the pipe has its uses, you're quickly going to find a halberd and a one-handed sword that will get the job done for all the normal people in the crowd. Now, as you'd expect from a first level, this is really just an extended tutorial now being put into a more real-world application setting with enemies that can theoretically kill you. They won't, but technically they could. That being said, something I didn't remember from my first playthrough is Oliver talks a ton in this tutorial area. I do not remember him being this mouthy. Holy shit. More importantly, when you get a notification that you've mastered a skill, that means you've learned it and it's no longer locked to the blood code it's equipped to. Think of it sort of like the skills in a job class focused Final Fantasy game, or the Pictos in Expedition 33. Something else you'll notice is you have a map in this game, but it's fairly grayed out at the start. To fill it in, you're going to need to find the blighted blooms and purify them, or find a legally distinct bonfire. Both ways work towards filling out your map, though the little dots will more or less be effective enough to kind of guide you through where you need to go.
Oh, didn't they pass us earlier? Are you okay? Did you get hurt? That could have gone better. I'll catch up with you in a bit. Don't worry about me. I'll be all right. Go on. You just focus on finding some blood beads, all right? That girl is waiting for you.
So Oliver is out of commission for some reason, despite him not even actually getting hit in the cutscene. I seem to remember the Revenant breaking off part of his mask, but no, it just hits the air next to him, which is actually kind of lame. Anyways, Oliver is gonna stand here and repeat the "I'll be alright" dialogue, which is just screaming death flags if you ask me. I give him an hour tops. And from here on, we're now forced to head off alone and fight some enemies, now being more mindful of our environment since, well, we're on our own. Really though, not much for me to say at the moment. However, when we see these white roots and flowers in the ground, make a beeline to the item inside it because they will always contain some sort of boost to your healing. In this case, it's a regen extension factor, which increases your maximum number of healing charges from 3 to 4. And yeah, this game runs off the Estus Flask system, not the blood vial system, thank God. As you progress, eventually you'll see a weird looking dude called the Stranger. You can choose to drag him along with you or not, but you'll see the choice doesn't really matter in the long run, so I vote to bring him with because I have nothing to prove and he's helpful for any final cleanup you may need to do in this area. The Stranger has more interesting dialogue going on than Oliver did. He'll comment on things like enemy formations or abnormal parts of the environment like the Thorns of Judgment, so it's not quite as bad. It's really just Oliver talks your ear off for the time he's with you. And after we purify a big tree, it's just a hop, skip, and a jump to the end of this area where we see a suspiciously boss arena shaped room.
Good. That's light from the surface. Once someone is lost, they can never come back. Cast aside your doubt.
I guess Oliver was 2 days away from retirement because things did not go well for him at all. Now, I would say Oliver fights like a standard hammer-wielding NPC, but after playing through this game, I don't remember any other hammer-wielding revenants in the game, outside of a very specific enemy type, which wasn't really counting. So, he's kinda unique. I respect that. But just in case you thought saving him was a possibility, that is not going to happen as he enters Phase 2 and mutates into a giant monster known as the Stone Crusher, a fierce but pretty easy to learn opponent, and for the record, you always fight this boss fight alongside the Stranger. It's not really a thing you can solo unless you intentionally die, and then you go back to the missile and remove him from your party, which I guess you could do, but I'm not going to sandbag a death here. Also, did you know you can parry bosses in this game? I didn't before this playthrough, but hey, that's pretty cool. Anyways, with Oliver slain, we save the mysterious girl, her name's Io by the way, and we'll see a red crystal known as a vestige, and the Stranger strictly tells us not to touch it. So we go ahead and touch it because the Souls-like protagonists are required to have the IQ of a sunfish. Either way, this takes us to our first vestige memory. Playable cutscenes where we get to see key moments in the vestige wielder's life, and in many cases leading up to their final moments. We also see Oliver's final thoughts before he frenzied, which is pretty effective at conveying some simple but effective emotions. We also get to speak with Io and the Stranger because we're not the only person tripping balls in this game, which is refreshing after other JRPGs like Persona where none of your team know what the hell is going on until the very end of the game.
I didn't expect that I'd get dragged into it too.
We both melted into you.
I can't believe this. What a power. Come with me. I know a spot where we can rest. I'm Louis. I'm researching blood beads. Nice to meet you. Ugly, isn't it? The red mist showed up a short time after the Queen was defeated. And when it did, it trapped everyone and everything inside, giving birth to the Society of Revenants ruled by Silva. The Jail of the Mists. As time passed, that was the name people gave to the world inside. The creatures trapped inside the miasma wander in a never-ending cycle of death and rebirth, always searching for blood beads to sustain them. Revenants need to have blood. Without it, they turn into those creatures we call the Lost. The Revenants who captured you were desperately searching for blood, terrified of losing themselves. It's a common fate these days. But ripples are beginning to form. You cleared the miasma and revitalized the blood spring. Where did you learn to do that? You've forgotten? Anything you do remember? That's unusual.
losing so much of your memory. I suppose it was the same for her.
That cutscene explains a fair bit about the game's world. Most people we meet in this world are revenants, or basically anime vampires, and we need blood to stop from going psychotic, and the only option is to either take it from a human or find a spring that gives fruit known as blood beads, and both of those are in short supply, with the few humans left being kept under major safeguard. Now, we have our hub world of the game, and one of the weirdest things is its lack of music. Well, it can have music if you turn on the jukebox or the radio, but it's completely diegetic, which I guess is kind of neat. But it can get kind of annoying when the song fades in and out depending on your camera angle and you're just trying to have a conversation. Otherwise, in this hub world, we can meet a few notable characters like a future party member, your main vendor, your blacksmith, and Davis, one of Sylva's soldiers. He'll be important later, kind of. But I am happy to say that unlike most post-apocalyptic fictional media, the government forces aren't really the bad guys in this game. They're just trying to uphold some level of law and order to stop everyone from going berserk and massacring one another or the humans. And we also get 3 hints about DLC maps. These hints are really stupid, but we won't be getting to the DLC anytime soon, so ignore it. I do recommend, though, taking this time to speak with Rin, the blacksmith, and upgrade your main weapon at least once, or your armor, while you're here, and when you're done wandering, you can chat with Louis to advance the plot. Here, Louis shows us his conspiracy theory board, as well as the location of 2 springs that he wants to check out to secure some more supplies of blood beads. And after the whole spiel, we get an offer to join Louis, but since it's a cutscene, it doesn't even let you pretend to say no. And with that, not only has Louis joined the team, but so has Yakumo, both useful party members that I'll get into as I go. For now, though, it's about time we head back out into the world, shall we? We head out into the world, and unsurprisingly, it looks like it's seen some better days, with the ruined city everywhere. As far as party members go, we currently only have 2 options, either Yakumo or Louis. I'll leave the choice up to you, but Louis is good with one-handed swords and magic, while Yakumo is all in on physical, but has more of a tank idea, and he's not going to be dodging a lot of attacks. Neither of them are a bad option, so it's pick whomever complements your playstyle more. Personally, I'll be taking Yakumo along for now. We're going to see some tougher enemies and a bit more enemy variety as we explore this place, and I will give it credit, I do think the early game of Code Vein does a decent job with its different enemy types. Later on, we'll see a lot more reskins, but it's somewhat understandable at that point. The enemies here aren't too difficult, but will demand some more of the player than the tutorial, where the only guy that might have put a little bit of danger in was the snouted wanderer. Here, you've got a bit more stronger revenants and also dogs, though thankfully they're not Dark Souls 3 level. As we progress through the place, we learn of a human woman that went missing somewhere around this area. In a world full of psychotic zombies and angsty vampire edgelords, being a human is no bueno, so we should probably try to find her and help her. We pick up another region extender, and the path splits here, and one of the ways you can go is actually down a giant pit. So, want to see a speedrunning tactic? Totally meant to do that. Anyways, once you make the drop, you can unlock the elevator so you don't have to do any of that again. And as we progress, we find an area covered in smog, and I'm going to spoil it for you now, folks. This isn't the intended pathway, but it's also the only time in the game you're not stuck on a linear path, so I want to do something wacky while I can. Plus, we will have to come down here sooner or later, so I figured, why not just get it out of the way?
Oh, this? It's called onigiri. It's a kind of food that's easy to carry around. Not that there's any point in eating food for a revenant. Although we may thirst for blood, we never grow hungry. Still, I think that makes eating all the more meaningful for us. We fight. We drink blood. We revive. We fight some more. Our lives are pretty much one endless loop. But every time you go around, you almost forget that we were all human once. If I completely lost the memory of my human past, I wouldn't be me anymore. I would just be something in the shape of me. I'd look like a revenant, but on the inside I'd be no different than the lost. What's the point of living like that? I served in the army, back before I became a revenant. We always used to eat these things when we were out on missions. I guess it helps me remember. It was a miserable time, but I made some good friends that I shouldn't let myself forget. This stuff doesn't really taste that great, but eating it always reminds me of those friends. So, I guess you could say it helps me stay me. It's been an important companion in my life.
Okay, all set. Come on, let's get going. There's a blood spring up ahead. Be careful not to lose your bearings, all right? If we get split up in this mist, we may never be able to find each other again.
We're safe for now, at least.
I like that scene of Yakumo enjoying his wonderful jelly donut. It's got some nice dialogue, and it talks about how he still partakes in his pointless human activities as a way to remember who he once was. I'm not going to pretend like this game's story is anything special, but I can at least appreciate the character writing trying to make an effort to make the cast feel more than just like bland archetypes. It doesn't always succeed, but I respect the effort, and I do think it works out a fair bit. Now as for the area, we see this place is completely covered in smog, and it's a swamp, but behold the poison swamp counter, as it's actually just one that slightly slows you down, so unless you're expending full stamina at least. So really, it's not gonna be that dangerous. There's no poison damage or damage over time effects. I don't really mind. I'll take my time in these levels, I'm perfectly patient. Our main objective is actually fairly simple, which is get to the end, but the swamp is filled with these small islands you can get to in order to light beacons, which act as waypoints, making navigation much easier. As we progress, we eventually get attacked by a mysterious girl that's also a revenant. She's traveling with her younger brother, who doesn't appear to be doing too terribly well, and this is an important cutscene for the plot, but all I can think of during this whole scene is, let me activate the bonfire, damn it. But we learn the girl is named Mia, and she's gone a long time without any access to blood beads, and is starving herself to feed her brother, which, well, he's not getting better from the food. Also, an unfortunate problem with this game is that its facial expressions really aren't the best. The game often gets around that by having characters wear masks, but another part of the problem is that everyone's mouth is too damn small in this game, so you don't really have much emoting going on. Now, you could say this is a lower budget anime game, of course it's not going to be the most emotive with its characters, but this isn't some low budget indie game. It was a AAA game released by Bandai Namco, and the other games in this series, well, sister series at least, don't have that problem, and it came out at full price with 3 DLCs. And it's not an issue in every cutscene, but when it is an issue, it really does stand out. So, we've already accomplished what we came here for. We found the spring. We're good to leave. However, since we have a moral compass or something, we can't just leave those two to almost certainly die down here, so we head out to find them. However, on the top right corner, behind the island that this cutscene happens on, you'll find another region extension factor, which is very, very, very useful. Spoilers, this is the last one you're going to get for an extremely long time in this game. I should mention the enemies here are new, as we see things like giant bugmen, as well as these spikeball asshats that are kinda sorta like this game's equivalent of bone wheels, or the Helium Lois hedgehogs, and I especially hate them here with your limited mobility. Definitely my least favorite opponent in the game. Otherwise, though, there's not too terribly much for me to say. The new enemies are pretty cool and feel like something that'd be an escalation and challenge over the early game mooks, but I'm doing things out of order, so oh well to that. And once you find Mia, you'll be able to start lowering a lot of water levels, allowing you to make progress unimpeded with the use of some keys you can find in the area, which is pretty cool. Overall, it's actually not a bad level, it just seems like it's going to suck when you first see it. Be careful though when you climb a hill and hear people talking, that's how you know you're about to fight the boss, so go take the right turn and go find that extra bonfire first.
Damn it! Where'd he run off to? These ashes are the boys. Something's coming.
And now, our next boss fight pits us against evil Hatsune Miku, and I'm here to tell you that you do not fight this boss this early in the game. You're not supposed to fight this boss this soon. Anyways, if you insist on fighting her right now, she doesn't really have any damage weaknesses outside of a bit of damage resistance to pierce and fire in Phase 2, but she also doesn't really resist anything else either. She's pretty much neutral all around. However, she's highly susceptible to the stun status, but none of that matters because her health isn't the problem, it's her status effects. Every time she hits you, she inflicts the slow status that has you stuck basically moving through swamp speed and making you overburdened. And also even screwing up your dodge, which sucks because mobility really matters in this fight since it's a positioning check with a lot of her attacks only covering small areas or her eruption coming out from below you, but they do a fair bit of damage. Honestly, if it wasn't for the slow status, this fight would be pretty awesome, but unless you have items that cure it or give you a resistance to slow, which, spoilers, you won't have a lot of unless you go do the other level first, you're gonna be in for a really tough time. But at least when we beat her, we get her weapon, which is pretty darn cool. Now, once she goes down, you're treated to a Vestige cutscene learning that Nicola and Jack apparently went somewhere very cold originally, but they were just here, weren't they? And it seems like Mia hadn't met Jack before, so how did Nicola know him? Also, this is Yakumo's first time inside a Vestige. And after that, we get a scene where Mia starts to frenzy, and the scene ends on, "We're going back to base!" And that's it. No follow-up or extra story context to go with it. You're really not meant to go do this place first. I cannot reiterate that enough. I did it solely because I wanted to see if I could, and surprisingly it let me do that. The only dialogue you even get on the matter is Mia is currently in a coma, and Rin is looking after her if you speak to Yakumo a couple of times. Anyways, wasn't there a human woman we were supposed to find or something? Anyways, Mia definitely wasn't the human woman we were looking for, so we better find her and hope she hasn't already been eaten or worse. I highly recommend, for more of these early game segments, taking time to try out the different blood codes and get a feel for what you like, as well as learning some new skills. For example, I'm going with a melee heavy build, but things like Poison Blade and Sonic Bullet can be pretty useful, especially Sonic Bullet for drawing enemy aggro from a distance. Another thing you'll learn about this game is enemies love to play dead, so unless you straight up see them with a weapon sticking through their body, there's a high chance that they can get up and attack you, so it's better just to swing and waste the stamina than not swing and get jumped. There's really not much for me to say about this city. It's kind of an extended tutorial, just now with us having some tougher than average enemies, but after completing the swamps, we're a bit over-leveled. Not quite tank and spank with reckless abandon, but pretty darn close to that point, and a lot of the early game levels are more so designed to get you used to different game mechanics, as well as try out whatever new builds you may want to try out. Trust me, we'll get to the infamous level when we get to it, and you will know. But until then, it's really not too bad. And when you get to the point when you see a giant cocoon, you know that you're very close to the end.
Let go of me!
We lost the race. Well, strength succeeds where speed fails.
Wait, this place is...
Hurry it up, damn wretch! Without your blood, we'll all suffer. Or didn't you think about that when you ran off? Ah!
Take him somewhere safe.
You owe me for this.
This boss. This fucking boss. Seriously, fuck this boss. A lot of her attacks are more or less just her spinning around making herself a big hitbox, either from spinning or from poison, and poison can kill you in this game, and remember how Invading Executioner was able to slow you with every attack? Well, this boss can poison you with every attack, and its animations are really herky-jerky as well. It's also just really stupid. This fight is a terrible difficulty spike, and it's usually a point where a lot of people drop the game if they were playing it in the intended order. The only saving grace is if you did the other area first, You can kind of throw strategy out the window and more or less tank and spank the boss to win. Also, I'm not going to be one of those loser weeaboos who acts like, English, But a lot of these nameless revenants have some pretty crappy voice acting. They're way too animated, and the delivery does not match up at all. The only saving grace is you can't see their face, so I guess it makes sense that they have no expression, but who gives a shit? Thankfully, this is the last time we have a nameless NPC pretty much until the end of the game. Anyways, after the boss is slain, we make our way to the next tree and we come face to face with the human woman. She threatens to end it all so she won't be tolerated like cattle, and Louis offers to help her because he's actually a good person. Also, why does this random NPC have more facial expression than some of the game's major characters? That's, you know what, not important. Let's just move on to the next area. Now, as we head on down the elevator, we're given a vestige cutscene that shows more of Louis' past, forcing him to confront some uncomfortable moments, but to summarize it, Louis was good friends with a girl named Cruz Silva, that girl that we actually met in the tutorial. And we also learned that she had the potential to become something known as the Queen as a way to help stop the catastrophe facing the world, as there were these monsters known as horrors that were ravaging it. I'll go into more of that later. Unfortunately, things didn't go well, as while she was able to fight off the horrors, not only did Cruz lose control, but she was in pain and agony during the entire process, knowing she wasn't going to be able to hold on, and begs for Louis to kill her. He can't bring himself to do it, which leads to her frenzying and bringing about the apocalypse, as well as the death of Louis' older sister Karen, who I believe was human at the time. Anyways, he's forced to live with the fact that his hesitation is what doomed so many. I could mock scenes for anime melodrama, but that'd honestly be pretty disingenuous when it's a genuinely well done cutscene where Louis opens up about and confronts his past. I know it's a trend for Souls-likes to have a creative character, but honestly, I kinda wish this game had Louis and Io act as the playable protagonists instead of having a CAC. And I know this formula works because the developers also made a game called Scarlet Nexus, which despite having a terrible reveal trailer, I don't know why they initially marketed that to make people think it was an Xbox exclusive, but that game had one of the most positive turnarounds I've seen in game advertisement, and it was actually a really good action game that I can highly recommend. Maybe I'll make a Scarlet Nexus video at some point, I don't know, I'd have to play the game twice. Anyways, I'm rambling because the dried up trenches is the most nothing area in the game in my personal opinion. The enemies are a bit tougher, but they don't really look cool or intimidating, and some of the opponents are just downright annoying. But otherwise, this entire area is basically just a straight line. There's not a whole lot of exploring to be had here outside of some medicine that boosts your status resistances to ailments like slow and regen amplification factors, which would be really nice to have because a boost in your healing is good, and resistances to slow would have been useful against the invading executioner, but that's about it. I mean, you can strengthen your legally distinct Estus Flask. Cool beans. If you see a missile followed by a giant dome filled with orange, you know you're at the end of the area. Yeah, it's pretty short and pretty linear. I sure hope all the levels aren't like this. The Insatiable Despot is a boss I have to give credit for. This thing looks cool, and like a genuine monster, but he loves to start the fight with an attack that can hit you if you don't immediately dodge roll, which is really a jerk move. Otherwise, despite his appearance and what it may suggest at a glance, the Despot is actually a master of cloning and will create small and weak clones of himself throughout the fight to hatch from red crystals he spawns. You can destroy these crystals to stop the cloning process as well, but just keep in mind he can bring in enemies. Interestingly, this boss doesn't really share much overlap between his Phase 1 and Phase 2 movesets, as Phase 1 sticks mostly to spawning minions and using his twin blades for weak melee attacks. Meanwhile, Phase 2 sees him assemble a halberd, removing the enemy summoning gimmick entirely. This boss looks awesome, but unfortunately this fight is pretty easy. Kind of sad and pathetic, really. Huh. I wonder if that's symbolic of something. With the second vein purified, we learn that our destination should be the old city ruins, but first we have to meet face to face with some dude known as the Hunter and his lady friend in a scene that's probably symbolic of something, but I can't really explain what's actually going on without spoiling a lot of the in-game. But this scene is pretty important with it, as we also get the Dark Seeker Vestige Core. Now, run around all you want, but you're not going to find any way to progress. You'll eventually need to head back to base. Now, once you've gone and completed both main story objectives, you get a scene that makes a lot more sense if you saved Mia as the most recent thing you accomplished, which, once again, don't fight the invading executioner early, have that be your fourth boss.
I'll be back. Wait, let me go with you. You shouldn't sleep so late, you know. Where... Where am I? Nicola! Wait! I want to keep Mia safe. Don't go, Nicola! A dream? But that means... this place...
Now, we have a lot of talking and a lot of story stuff happens here as we gain our new objective, we gain a new party member in the form of Mia, and other important things happen where we now know we're going to need to find an important statue, find a hidden switch within it, and that will take us to the source of the blood beads, which is pretty much our main objective for Act 1 of the game. We also get some other scenes around base where we learn more info about Yakumo's past and a cutscene of the gang chilling out in base, and honestly, I wish we had more of these scenes. These feel like some of the best interactions between your teammates, but there's only really 3 scenes in the game that take place here, and now we've already seen 2 of them. And shortly after that, we have a bit of a heart-to-heart with Io, where she slowly starts to grow more as a person and is developing more emotions as she's learning. And your base will also be visited by the human lady, who doesn't have a name for some reason, but her voice actress is Carrie Karanin. So I'll just say her name's Ariana since I've been replaying Etrian Odyssey Fafnir Night recently. She periodically drops into base and will sometimes give you helpful little items as you progress throughout the story. It's nothing major, but it's a nice little nest egg and you kind of see how she's doing.
Do you have any more info on him? No. Right. Memory loss. Sorry.
I don't know why, that line's just funny to me. Now, before we head off to our next objective, if we talk to the dude decked out in silver armor, this is Davis by the way, he'll tell us about a place known as the Depths. These are your optional mini-dungeons filled with mostly useless supplies and a few really good materials, making them kinda sorta like Chalice dungeons in Bloodborne, but not randomized. I do wish I had more to say about the depths maps, but they're usually fairly unremarkable in terms of stuff to do in them, other than you fight some enemies and get a little bit of materials. But they do have one saving grace. You can actually fight bosses from the story throughout the game here, and it's a neat little way to let the player rematch almost any boss in the game as many times as they want, which I think is cool. I wish more Souls-likes let you do that. Of course, for now, our only fight is against the clone of Oliver Collins, but hey, it's a start, and it is still pretty cool. So, going back to the city, at the missile before the Butterfly of Delirium, head off to the side path and you'll find a statue you can interact with. And when doing so, you will now lower down a ladder, which allows you to head onwards to see the rest of the world. And after about a minute of running through a comedically long hallway, we are treated to that level of the game. The Cathedral of Sacred Blood is a comedically massive level. Probably the longest and most labyrinthian in the game, and it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say an entire fifth of the game is dedicated to just this place. It's long, it's confusing, and I've already made a video covering this level as a whole. So, as to not repeat myself, I kind of just recommend watching that video for some more details. Meanwhile, I'm still going to hit on some of the main points because it's still ridiculous. This dungeon is also special as it's the first one to house an important vestige, this time known as the Assis vestige. Yes, I'm intentionally pronouncing it wrong so the video doesn't get struck down. To get the game's good ending, we're going to need to find all 5 of these before slaying the boss. Now granted, one of them is given to you for free, however, we've still got 4 others to find, so we have to explore this massive place very thoroughly. Seriously, don't try to knock this place out in a single go. Take multiple breaks and do it in at least 2, if not 3 sessions. You're going to be here for hours. Take a break, get food, relax, go for a walk, go to the gym, spend time with your dogs, pet, family, loved ones, whatever. Don't try to marathon this place. It's not worth it. I didn't do that this playthrough either. This dungeon sucks, but just get ready for it to take a while. The enemies here are also a major step up in difficulty, as most of them are geared for you to have +4 to +6 weapons and armor, but where do you get those upgrade materials? From the enemies in this dungeon, of course, so you're gonna probably need to farm a lot. And as a bonus, many of the enemies here can teleport to either attack you or just have it as the thing they do. And while many purification points in other levels fill out at least 25% of the map, here you're in luck if they even cover 10%. It is a rough time. I also can't really recommend bringing along Mia because unfortunately the first level you get her here is the one where she's specifically engineered to suck horribly at it. See, Mia works best when she's fighting at ranged and dealing with big strong enemies or has enough space to work in. A lot of the Cathedral of Sacred Blood is going to be fairly cramped areas and lots of enemies kind of attacking you from different angles, and you can't really keep your distance in a level where enemies can teleport to attack you. Honestly, I highly recommend just bringing along Louis with you for this dungeon. He's got good mobility and he's got good damage at both range and up close. He's not going to really have an issue like Yakumo or Mia will. He's probably your best bet for this point in the game. Also, something important that you will want to fight here is this samurai mini-boss. He's special as he has a regen activation factor. We could find a second one chilling out on the ground prior to this, but this one is tied specifically to killing the guy, so you won't be cheesing this one out by just running in. You're going to have to actually fight him and win. Now, to be honest, after you've killed the samurai, a lot of the worst of this place is behind you. Don't get me wrong, it's still a labyrinth, you're still going to get lost, but it's not quite as overwhelming, and the teleporting enemies do at least get scaled back a little bit. A lot of this place really just becomes a matter of finding and pulling levers to progress and open up pathways. I'm personally fine with this part. It's a bit more logically laid out, and it makes more sense to me, albeit it still can get kind of confusing, but at least we're starting to get a little bit of landmarks, though this dungeon really does suffer from the everything looks the same problem. At the very least, when you see the door with wings on it, you know you're about halfway through the dungeon. Rejoice and rest up at the missile. This particular segment of the cathedral is actually pretty close to a boss fight, but also not quite there yet, as this next segment is all about finding the sneakily hidden switches around the area to open up the doors, till eventually we have a straight shot to the boss arena. I don't really mind this part. I think it works overall pretty well, and it's fairly logically laid out once you start getting used to it and realize, look off the side, you'll probably be where you need to go. And when you see a big scary dude, congratulations, you've made it to the first boss fight of the dungeon. The Argent Wolf Berserker is a surprisingly very straightforward boss considering how confusing this level can be. He's got some strong attacks, but ultimately it's just an honest club-wielding guy with an AoE explosion he can cast. Granted, it can be dangerous in a pretty small arena, but it's still not that bad. He honestly feels more like a really powerful normal enemy than a proper boss, because not only can you parry and repost him, which you can do that to a couple bosses, but to my knowledge, he's the only boss you can backstab, which doesn't do a ton of damage, but gives you a guaranteed knockdown period where you can easily heal up and reapply any buffs you may want to use, or follow up with a skill that will do the actual damage, since he doesn't have much of any damage reduction when recovering. I do like this fight though, but he's overall fairly basic, and there's not much for me to talk about here. It's a pretty straightforward, honest fight, and I'm okay with that. What isn't insignificant though is the vestige right after the boss, because it's special. Now, we don't have to interact with it, but if we do, we get to see and learn about the war with the Queen as it reached its climax. This was the final battle, or at least planned to be the final battle, with Gregorio Silva rallying the soldiers. And you're about to learn more than you ever thought you would.
Welcome back. How are you feeling? Do you know where you are? You were killed 2 days ago, and now you've returned. Just relax. Here, could you fill out this medical form for me? I'd like to confirm some things, if that's all right. How much do you remember about yourself? No signs of frenzy or major dysfunction. You appear to be in excellent shape. The damage to your heart had me a bit worried. But you're surprisingly resilient. Still, if anything feels off, be sure to let me know right away. We revenants are immortal creatures. However, if you become one of the lost, you'll be beyond any hope of salvation. Here. The Queen's miasma has been growing thicker. When you're fighting, just remember to hang on to this, no matter what. Looks like it's time for the meeting. I know you're probably not feeling up to it. But it'll be over soon enough. Hang in there.
Here we are in the past of all things, and we actually get a chance to talk to characters that otherwise are pretty remote, such as the researcher Aurora Valentino, Karen, Louis' older sister, and the leader of the Argent Wolves, Gregorio Silva. And anytime I hear DC Douglas, I can only think of Wesker, but each person has interesting things to talk about. And we've also learned that Louis hasn't woken up from being a revenant yet, so this must take place a while in the past. Now, Each of them has something interesting to say. Aurora is just wanting you to stay alive and not have any unnecessary death. Karen talks about her research and wanting to find a way to help stop revenants from frenzying while also keeping the humans safe. Silva has an idea of humans voluntarily donating blood, but Karen's desire is to find a solution that doesn't require taking blood from humans at all, and given that blood beans exist, it's safe to assume she succeeded. Silva mostly just focuses on the battle here and now. He's got a lot writing on it, but if you talk to him enough, he'll also give you some history lessons, so that's kind of neat for lore building. Even the faceless NPCs have some interesting dialogue, as you'll have characters talk about their lives before becoming a revenant, and even one mentioning how he has a human family that he keeps in touch with and they're waiting for him to come home. I find the dialogue here a lot more interesting than the stuff in the prologue, because instead of doom and gloom, there's people talking about their hopes for the future, and we know that the queen was slain, which brought in the red mist, so now the question is, what exactly happened? We won't find our answer standing around, so we head up to find Jack, who... yeah, he's a little bit familiar, don't you think?
There's a report that the Queen broke through our defensive grid and is headed this way.
So, this place is kind of weird. It's completely disconnected from the rest of the game, and story and is the only optional segment of the game, which makes it all the more interesting because of how much story actually takes place here. Originally, this was an area you could only ever visit this one time, and then you'd be locked into the memory until you finished up and could never return. And while I do believe you're still locked in here for now, it's no longer that exclusive, as you can come back here later if you wish. Thankfully though, that also means there aren't any missable key items here like vestiges. It's just a slightly modified weapons and armor that can be obtained later, and a few useful consumables, as well as one blood veil that is actually pretty helpful. The enemies are a bit all over the place, however. You'll have enemies from the dried up trenches, revenants with different weapon classes than before, and a few enemies known as vanguards that are basically scaled down late game opponents with a black coat of paint. And I do need to warn you, this place can be somewhat difficult, at least enemy wise, due to your somewhat limited resources, but more so, I gotta say it, Jack is the most useless party member in the game. He uses one-handed swords like Louis, but he focuses more on melee attacking and trading blows in some aspects with a more physical toolkit, but the problem is, while he's bulkier than Louis, he's frailer than Yakumo, and lacks the maneuverability of Louis or Mia, and doesn't have their powerful spells either. Mia struggles hard early on, but she gets really strong by the late game, and can be a great addition in any tough boss fight, but Jack is never gonna be the answer, outside of the one section where he's required, and with that, I've already spoiled that yes, he's gonna join your team later on, but I don't know. Sure, it's a spoiler, but if you watch this channel, you've likely found it from Expedition 33 or Tales of Vesperia, so you've probably played a JRPG before and know how those stories go. That being said, if you found this channel from Titanfall 2 or the Halo video, more power to you. Anyways, this place somewhat stands out audio-wise, as it's one of the few places with music. It's more so ominous distant ambience that would normally play whenever you're kind of near enemies, but the way this place is treated as a battlefield, it always has the little ambience playing, and I think it works well in my opinion at setting how off everything about this place is. And near the very end, you find the Night Fang, which is that really good blood veil I was telling you about, because it's already at +5. Anyways, we've got a boss to slay, so I say we get to it.
Completely corrupted revenants. The Queen's sorry brothers. Listen, kid. Show them no mercy.
The Queen's Knight was the first boss shown off in the game as part of the test demo, and as such, it's one of the game's simpler but also better designed bosses because it's the one they had to get right. As such, he has no real gimmick or ailment to worry about, he just fights you. Granted, he can teleport, but since it doesn't break block, it's really just done for flair, and honestly, I think the boss battle is good. It's a simple but very effective knight fight that teaches everything that you need to know, but also can act as a bit of a final exam before the game takes the training wheels off. That being said, we gotta get back to the present somehow, and the only way to do that is to go through this monster. And personally, I think the cutscene that follows best speaks for itself.
Our ill-mannered guest is here. Guess that means we have to begin the festivities.
Did I make it?
Silva.
I'll take the spear. All right, gang. This is the moment of truth. This creature will never hurt any of my people again.
At last, you can know peace. What? Kid! Well done.
Your resolve was truly admirable.
Sleep well, friend.
So after that grand reveal, and us more or less getting our memories back, we get a special reward, Queenslayer. Our blood code. Well, that was a cool side quest, but unfortunately, it's the only real one in the game, because outside of the depths, there's only 2 optional bosses in the game, and even then, both boss fights are mandatory for the game's good ending. But I'm sorry to tell you that we are still very much stuck in this fucking cathedral, and we're only a little over halfway through it. But for better or for worse, I don't have enough topics to talk about to keep dragging this area out forever and ever, amen. Well, that's kind of a lie, because while we do have more missiles to rest at, it doesn't get any easier to navigate, as now there's multiple locked doors that require keys to open. Keys that are found in chests or on the ground and look no different from any other collectible, so get to hunting and try not to get turned around too much.
Stop acting like you know the way ahead, like you know the rules. There are no rules, man. We're lost.
It's also important to note that we still have more vestiges we have to find, and there's this one weird little pillar room that's just kind of sticking out that you need to drop down from above to get. That's one of them that always tricks me on how to get there. Also, there's an enemy with a rotten bloom on her head. Kill her to unlock more of the map, and then break the crate behind her for another vestige. This is one of the most hidden ones. It's gonna take a while, a really long while, but eventually you'll see the big building with the weird barrier over it, and you'll know the end has arrived. But we're also going to see a pretty familiar face.
Io? No, it's someone else.
Memory is what binds the very essence of oneself together. If you gather broken fragments of blood code, you can stitch them together with threads of memory. Please, I beg of you, I beseech you, use your power now.
This cutscene and this door acts as a warning for the player. You'll be able to restore vestiges with the assistance of Lita, so you're not required to head back to base, but we want to make sure we have all 5 vestiges and, well, put them all together. Whether you put it together here with Lita or you go back to base to have Io fix it is entirely up to you. What matters is that you need to assemble them all before killing the boss on the other side of that door if you want the game's good ending. Heck, the game even gives you one sort of warning saying there's a powerful foe on the other side, which is its last real thing trying to stop you from fighting the boss. Now, these vestiges are more focused around Aurora Valentino, the lady we have met in the past alongside Karen and Silva that you probably forgot about. It shows her actions up to her death as a human, rebirth as a revenant, and accepting the responsibility of becoming something known as a successor. What that entails we don't completely know yet, but she's losing her sense of self, her reason, her humanity, and even her name. And what's effective is we don't get to see what Aurora looks like at this point, but we know that whatever has become of her is on the other side of that very door. And when you're ready, it's time for your boss fight.
That didn't do a thing.
This way.
Come on.
Is that the guardian of this place?
A gate. Looks like we've still got a ways to go.
We're going through.
This monster is a beast known as the successor of the ribcage, a terrifying creature that looks like a she-wolf with a human woman's torso warped and twisted. She lacks any traditional movement, instead focusing on just teleporting from one end of the arena to the other, and her elemental attacks are quite strong, but sadly due to her low mobility, she's quite frail, and despite being the first boss to have a really cool new boss theme, it doesn't last long enough to really matter.
What in the world? It regenerated so quickly.
Is that vestige controlling the regeneration somehow? That's it. We have to destroy it. Now you're speaking my language.
Just kidding, this boss has 2 health bars, and phase 2 is a lot tougher. Health-wise, she's only gained 5,000 HP, but her defenses are a decent bit higher, and her offensive capabilities put her in another league. She has all the same attacks as before, but now more advanced spells like Foul Blood Barrier to make up for her low-ish HP, Thundercloud, and a Fire Beam that wrecks your life, along with her teleporting being far more explosive than before. If you're gonna die anywhere, it'll be here. So it's a good thing that it starts at phase 2 for some reason if you ever have to rematch the boss. I mean, I'm not really complaining, but, you know, it's just kind of interesting. Unfortunately, this boss fight is cool, but it falls short due to the lack of mobility, making it very easy to just get under her and just wail on her. And her only big get-off-me attack is Fire Element, so if you bring Fire Defense, that kind of cuts into her offense. You can die, but Mia can just revive you and heal you up. I wish it wasn't so easy to abuse, because it's a genuinely cool boss fight, but it's also jankily designed. Still, it does feel like a step up in terms of how grand the fight is, which is good, because the successors are the equivalent of your Lord Souls or Lord of Cinder bosses. We have no way of stopping this monster from coming back, so if violence isn't the answer, then I guess we'll need to confront the original successor, and another scene that I think is just best left for me to not say anything.
We will divide the body of the Queen into relics, which we will then seal into the successors. This will keep them separate and safe.
Are you insane? Just shove that devil into a blast furnace already.
Aurora Valentina. We've already attempted that.
But that doesn't mean...
Your compatibility means that you would have to stay in a crypt forever. Are you sure you're willing to do that?
I have no interest in living a false life. Whatever the torment, I can bear it. If it means helping her, then I must. I am prepared, and I shall remain ever at the ready. As long as there are still people who I would die to defend. So please, rest easy, Karen. I will be at your side, for now and always. I'll be honest, I never expected to see you again like this. It's been a long time, Louis.
Aurora? Aurora, is that you? What are you doing here?
The answer was inside that memory. Fragments of the Queen's body were locked inside of successors. Human sacrifices. And I am one of them.
The Queen? But she was put down years ago.
Officially, yes. But there's more to that, as you probably know. Revenants are seemingly immortal creatures, locked in a cycle of death and rebirth. But if you destroy a Revenant's heart, then their body dissolves, and they can never revive again. The Queen should have been no exception. An immortal among immortals, even when reduced to ash. The Queen's regeneration couldn't be stopped.
So you locked her away?
Yes. By carving her undying body into relics and fusing those relics into the bodies of others. In doing so, the Queen's menace faded, and for a brief time there was peace. But we all knew the plan was desperate and flawed. Even with the relics locked away, the Queen's desire to live on could not be suppressed. The relics soon began to corrode the bodies of the successors, causing them constant and terrible anguish. You have witnessed the end result. They are reduced to living as beasts, devoid of all reason, seeking only to act on their most basic instincts. Yet, it was your power that restored my sanity. You have the ability to accept the Queen's blood.
What?
Huh? You have the power to quell the relics at last. Please, I beg you, relieve them of their suffering. This gate leads to the crypts where the successors rest. To reach the others, you will need to find these gates. I believe you can open it now. I will remain here, as I always have, to watch over and protect the paths leading to the successors. And the blood bead flow.
So, this really is the source.
Yes, beyond the gate. There rests the one who sheds tears of blood. Take care of her, Louis.
Her? What do you mean?
If the resting successors join the ranks of the lost, then the seals will break. The relics will be released, and the Queen will be reborn. Before that happens,
After the successor turns to stone, you'll have to leave. If you didn't complete their vestige, this is where their story ends. If you did, though, then you can choose to restore the memory and offer them some respite and maybe find a way to truly help them and not just give them a mercy kill. I honestly think the main English voice cast does a great job in this game, but it's always funny to me when Veronica Taylor shows up because I always associate her with Ash Ketchum. Anyways, yeah, our next objective is just to simply head down to the source of the blood beads. And after we go down, we get to see Karen became a successor, though she's considerably more human looking than the others, albeit also kind of a giant flower. And I guess she found her solution to help the Revenants by creating the blood beads, though it's at her own expense. Essentially, she's like something of packing a wound over an amputated limb. She's buying the world some time, but won't be able to stop the fallout, so we've got to help her however we can. And after your long walk back up the stairs, you get a special cutscene where you run into Jack and get some unique dialogue if you saved Aurora instead of killing her, as well as a "you should join us" line, but we also already know he's trying to help stop the successors from frenzying, so dude, we're already on the same side, you dingus. Either way, the source is found, we can now open the doors with wings on them, allowing us to head forward to new lands, and no, I will not be showing this scene off uninterrupted because it plays the main theme song, and that's kind of rolling the dice with copyright. Oddly, the door that we need to go through is the one near the end of the cathedral, as it has a purple missile that is able to warp us to a distant land known as the Inner Crypt, where you need to go after traversing through a cold cave where we reach the snowy area of the game that Mia saw in her dream. This is the Frozen Ridge of Souls. I died to gravity, but I love that the protagonist actively sounds pissed off that he died like this and not in some other way like combat. It's honestly one of my favorite lines in the game. Our hunt this time around is for the Pheon vestiges, but this one is actually considerably easier than the previous vestiges because this area is significantly smaller and a lot easier to navigate, on top of us already having one of the Pheon vestiges from back when we were in the pit. We find a purple door that we can't open right now. Keep that in mind, however, it'll be important later. Then we have a cutscene where the team enters the long since built up ice level and we learn about what happened to Nicola, finally. As it turns out, Mia was with a clone of Nicola the whole time, which was why it wasn't able to heal from the blood bead, and we also learned that Nicola, not so surprisingly, volunteered to become a successor, and he also wanted his giant form to be a giant fighting robot, which, honestly, based as hell. We also learn a bit more about Jack as a person since he's not doing a good job fitting the whole evil shtick. It should come as no surprise that the snowfield is filled to the brim with snow, and these snow piles are speaking Revenantese, so be careful as you search, and keep an eye out for the Pheon vestiges. Thankfully, bright red flashes stand out pretty well against white snowfields when there's not walls blocking your way, just be careful because the enemies here are no joke. That being said, the one you're likely missing is the Pheon Vestige A, as it's near the beginning where you need to drop down the bridge, and be careful not to go splat on the bottom. Keep going, and you'll also find a regen activation factor to boost your healing permanently, which is always nice. That being said, if you're wondering why we still haven't found another increase to our maximum number of healing items, all I gotta say is keep waiting, we're not gonna find another expansion until we beat the next boss. And in the memories with Nicola, we learn that Mia was in a coma for a very long time, presumably even years, after becoming a revenant, and Nicola took up becoming a successor to keep the world safer for her. And he learned he had an ability to create a clone of himself to stay alongside Mia to keep her safer. And yeah, that's pretty much it. We're at the end already. I told you, this place is way shorter than the cathedral. Also, I may have forgot to record the vestige scenes. Whoops. So it's no surprise that the next successor battle is against Nicola, and his ideal form is that of a mech based. But as we get in here, we can see his unbreakable force of will is the thing keeping him from frenzying despite going through it for as long as Aurora. But we need to help little bro out, I suppose.
But your sister is here now. I'm here!
The music in this boss fight is amazing, and honestly, it's one of my favorite boss fights in this game. The boss is honestly just leaps and bounds above every other fight up to this point in terms of enjoyment for me. But it's not too difficult, as he's got fairly low HP. That being said, Phase 1 is a more defensive foe, using a giant saw shield that looks really freaking awesome. Doomslayer would be proud. But Phase 2 goes more on the offense with his rocket jumps, ice blades, and punching the crap out of you. It's an awesome fight that I wish lasted longer, and I definitely think you should fight this boss alongside Mia, because it's pretty easy to rematch him whenever you want thanks to the depths maps, but here you can get more of the definitive story experience. There's not much for me to say about Nicola's final memory. It's more of a I want to protect my sister and hoping she wakes up soon, and he volunteers to become a successor to keep Mia safe, which we kind of already learned from the other vestiges, so nothing new here. And the scene at the end with Mia reuniting with Nicola is very nice, and it works both ways. If you repaired the Pheon vestige, it's a sweet reunion between the two siblings, and if you didn't, it's an emotional farewell, made more impactful by the quiet acceptance from Mia. No dramatic denial, just hugging her brother one last time. But I'm going for the good ending, so I'm saving him.
Mia?
Nicola. You sure have grown.
Yeah, this is how I look now.
But this form's much stronger.
I really don't know how I can repay you for all that you've done. I owe you so much. Everything, really. And yet, I have nothing to give you in return.
I'd like to show my gratitude somehow, but in this shape.
To be honest, I was hoping you'd come along with us. But
You've only just been reunited with your family. It would be pretty cruel to break you two up again.
you agree, right?
That scene's sweet. I genuinely like it. Plus, for beating the boss, we get the Fion Vestige, which is amazing for hammer wielders on top of having other good skills like Ice Scatter and Ice Weapon, which is a useful buff as it's an elemental blade skill. The game pretends like Mia is leaving the team, but we all know that's not happening, so she rejoins immediately. Not much to do other than head back to base, but before you head out, go right outside the boss arena to find a vestige where the attendant once was. Lita doesn't have one, but no points for guessing what happened to the attendants. Getting back to base, we've got another scene where the gang is just able to chill out and relax a bit, but it's quickly undercut when Eva comes stumbling in looking like she's on death's door at the moment. Given that she's never been hostile towards us and stopped the fighting with Jack, we should at least try to help her out.
How do you feel?
I apologize for barging in like that. What's going on exactly? Do you know about the cavern underneath the cathedral? We were attacked there. Jack lured them away so that I could... Slow down.
Attacked? Wait, what were you doing down there in the first place?
Our mission is the preservation of the successors and their relics. It is not a new phenomenon for successors to go into a frenzy. There has always been a need for someone to monitor them and to stop them if they ever begin to turn. A successor acts as a vessel for a relic, in both body and will. If that vessel breaks, it has to be replaced. That's why.
That's why you were hunting for revenants?
We considered every possible option. We truly did. But in the end, that was the only one that would work. I know it's no excuse for what we've done, even if it was the only way. That is simply a burden I will have to live with. I will always carry them with me. I will never forget the faces and dreams of those who stepped forward to keep the relics safe.
I suppose it really can't be all that easy to find a replacement vessel.
That's why we're here, to keep a constant eye on the condition of the other successors.
Wait, you guys are successors too?
Jack watches the successors for signs of frenzy, while I act as a temporary replacement, until we can find someone suitable. My voice has the power to stave off frenzy, for a time at least.
A temporary vessel. I think I'm beginning to see.
There's a successor resting in a crypt under the cathedral. We were traveling through the tunnels down there to check on them. I know I have no right to ask you for help, but...
It's all right. You rest here for now. We'll rescue Jack. I promise. Actually, I have a question. The successor whose crypt is under the cathedral. Do you know who they are?
I do. In addition to a number of other scientific endeavors, he was involved in revenant research and an integral part of Project Queen. I believe you may have heard of him. Juzo Mido.
Did you say Mido?
You know him?
Yeah. He sold us out. Me and my entire family.
So now we have the name of our main villain, Juzo Mido, and also Jack and Eva were basically going around to the crypts to monitor the successors, and Eva would act as a sort of stopgap if they had to go between successors, and she remembers every person that died as a successor. Our next story objective will take us to the other area behind the wing door, and we're going to want to speak to Io for a bit since she's got some important dialogue.
Leda, do you know of her? I heard she looks very similar to me. At some point, she simply vanished, leaving behind only a single vestige. Louis thought it might mean something, so he brought it to me. I know nothing about her, but I feel that I should. There are memories in this vestige. Please, could you show me?
So we're getting to see the final memory of an attendant, and one of Io's sisters, where we learn that she was created to look after her successor, Aurora, much like Io was made to look after us. However, Leda doesn't seem to have the same value of life, probably due to her living in a more solitary existence. Meanwhile, Io has kind of traveled with us and interacted with others like Louis, Yakumo, Rin, and Mia, coming to care about them as well. And we see that other attendants aren't just husks, they have their own thoughts and concerns, wondering why they can't save the others.
An attendant of the relics, one who stands by and serves a successor. It is the same for me. My duty is to stand by your side and lend you my support, just as she did for her successor. We were created with the same purpose. That attendant, Leda, she was a defender of sacred ground. I am certain she fulfilled her duty until the end. Yes, she fulfilled her duty, and yet... I'm not sure how to describe what I'm feeling. It seems so empty somehow. Her life was consumed entirely by her mission. Leda... I want to know more. All this time I've been blindly following my duty, but is what I'm doing really the right thing? What is my true purpose in life? If I am with you, I may be able to find the answers to some of my questions, just as I did now. I realize that what I ask you now may not be part of my duty. Still, I feel I must ask it of you nevertheless. Please, will you permit me to go with you in your future travels? Are you sure? Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I shall do my best.
It's a nice scene with some great development for Io, but it's really undermined by her wearing what is essentially a Virgin Killer sweater, and even that's being generous. And with that, Io joins as a party member, and she's by far the strongest in the game, but we're not going to have her running around dressed like that. So since I'm on PC, I figured why not mod in another outfit? There's actually alternate outfits for every party member in the game, but you can't get them until the second to last area of the game, and they don't show up in cutscenes, so we'll have to go with another strategy. There's a bunch of really nice ones, such as Elegant Io, but unfortunately its physics kind of breaks if Io dodge rolls too much, so I kind of went with this one since I think it looks nice. Honestly, yeah, Io is probably the strongest party member in the game, not to the point that she renders the others pointless, but if you're ever struggling and not sure how to continue in the game, just use her on your team. Now, to actually make progress, we head over to the gated room missile to progress past the wing door, and we find one of Code Vein's comically long elevator rides. This isn't the longest by any means, but it lasts a solid 15 to 20 seconds, which is significant. Riding down, we enter this glowing limestone cavern sort of area that we learned that the successor beneath the cathedral escaped from his crypt, so I'm glad to say we don't have a vestige hunt for this dungeon. Pretty soon we stumble into Jack, and he's fairly chill, but still being an edgelord that doesn't want to help us, and the game actually does address that Jack was looking after Nicola for Mia while she was unconscious, which is appreciated.
There's a lot I want to say to you, but I'll keep it short. Thank you for watching over Nicola. I really appreciate it.
I'm not sure you should be thanking me.
Who was it? Who attacked you?
Somehow, the impossible happened. No successor should be able to escape from a sealed crypt.
A successor? Wait, are you saying Mito attacked you?
Eva already told you? That'll save some explaining. It's strange. I'm not picking up any relic response from Mito's body. And yet, as far as I can tell, the crypt is still functioning normally.
That's really all that's important out of that cutscene. So, Mito is actually a character that we have seen in a couple of Vestige cutscenes prior to this point, but we haven't had a good chance to see him in person yet. All we know is that his crypt is still functioning, almost like he removed his Vestige and forced it into someone or something else. Anyways, there's not much for me to actually say about this dungeon. It looks okay, but without needing to explore thoroughly, it's more of a cooldown after 2 successor dungeons in a row. That being said, this dungeon does hold our next regen extension factor, so we can finally get up to 7 healing charges, but otherwise the enemies here aren't even reskins, they're just straight up copy-pasted from the dried up trenches, so use this as a chance to learn some skills fairly easily and build up your arsenal. I recommend trying out Fion a little bit to learn things like Ice Scatter. Now let's talk about what makes Io so strong. See, she wields a halberd, giving her very high damage, good medium range, and very good speed. She has a ton of offensive magic of different elements, making her highly versatile. Io's is a massive vestige, so she has a bunch of skills to choose from. She's reasonably durable, being able to take hits better than Mia, and on some cases maybe even Louis. And she dodges attacks like a champ. She has no weakness on her own. In fact, her only weakness is you. What do I mean by that? Well, every party member has a healing skill that they can use to heal and also revive a player. And you can revive them by using your own HP, so it is kind of more of like a team effort. Usually, the healing skills will take half of their HP to restore a player. However, Io's skill is Generous Gift, where she sacrifices over 70% of her current HP to give it to you, which will heal you up quite a bit, but leave her very vulnerable to getting one-tapped by the enemy. But her AI is also really good at dodging and healing at a safe moment, so even this weakness rarely comes into play unless the enemy is carpet bombing the field. Io is an absolute beast that feels like you shouldn't be able to even get her until New Game Plus. Not someone you can snag halfway through the game. She's awesome, and she's a little bit overpowered. And honestly, that's pretty much all there is to the dungeon. There's not too much to the limestone cavern area. It's pretty short, because you can pretty much go fight the boss after about 10 minutes. But before doing that, I actually want to go back to base because I forgot to get Mia's blood code. That's entirely my bad. She's got one of the best blood codes for gunners in the game, so you should definitely pick it up when you can if you're going for ranged options, and honestly, more options is always a good thing. And you also get another delivery from Ariana. She gives you a bunch of items that can be used to help increase your bond level with your party members, which is nice. As for the Vestige memories, while they do give extra world building, I don't really find any of them that worth mentioning if they aren't a party member or a successor, with the exception of the upcoming boss fight. But I still recommend you view them to get a little bit of extra story and also unlock a few extra skills that can be useful. So this fight's a little bit funny because your party members can actually glitch out and get stuck behind the battle arena and be unable to join you. Now, the Gilded Hunter is kind of a deceptive boss fight. You see him thinking this is a no-nonsense duel, but au contraire, there is plenty of nonsense in this fight. The Gilded Hunter fights straightforward and fair for Phase 1 with some really cool music, but overall it's pretty easy to get used to and take him down. However, when you get to Phase 2, well, there's a reason many people consider him to be the hardest boss outside of the endgame. Once he drops to slightly above half health, he enters Phase 2 where he buffs up and he has increased defenses and aggression. He honestly seems impossible for a player to realistically beat like this, and is an insane difficulty spike. Like, what the hell am I supposed to do here? The answer though is pretty simple. Just survive. It had been so long since I fought this guy, I honestly forgot this was what the boss did, but basically, he's the old Demon King from Dark Souls 3, but instead of one big explosion, he enters the Berserk mode where he keeps attacking till he runs out of energy and collapses, at which point, he's completely defenseless. He will eventually be able to get back up, but he's not going to, so you can pretty easily just beat him to death if you can outlast his onslaught in Phase 2. And that's the only thing that's making the Gilded Hunter even remotely difficult. After the boss is killed, we get a vestige that shows Yakumo and his military buddies, all his orphans, taken in by Mito, but instead of being a caring father figure, he's the one dude that would feel at home in the Fallout universe as this sick, twisted bastard. Everyone else seems to have at least relatively good intentions, but Mito is just pure evil. And he sounds exactly like Shido from Persona 5, because of course he does. He's talking about evolution and humanity and going beyond, and I mean, it's fucking Keith Silverstein villain, so you already know the type. Oh, and be sure to look behind you at the end. After all, you're being watched. With those dog tags we got from the Gilded Hunter, we can actually progress further into Mito's crypt. Only to find that everything is on fire, and no, a zero damage run of this game is not possible because you have to catch on fire to make progress in this place, and honestly, this is actually my least favorite level in the game. Yes, I hate it even more than the Cathedral of Sacred Blood, despite it taking only about a quarter of the length. At least we get some new enemies, but this place just becomes downright tedious waiting for the fire to die down so you don't get deleted instantly, and we have yet another successor dungeon, meaning it's time for more vestige hunting. Once you progress far enough, you'll have a cutscene where Yakumo realizes that one of his old teammates, Emily, is nearby and likely the next successor, and to be honest, narratively this part is kinda weak. It mostly exists to build up Mito as a villain because Emily is one of the least involved characters in the story, and while Aurora also had limited screen time, she delivered some major lore dumping and was your first successor. We're now on number 3 of 4, and honestly very little to say about this place or this character.
What's that doing there? Why wasn't it lowered in the first place?
Because Souls likes, Io. Because Souls likes. And if you're willing to emulate yourself, you'll find the last healing activation factor you can get outside of the very end of the game, bringing our healing to +5, which is quite useful. I hate to say it, but this is in my opinion the worst level in the game, with me having nothing to really talk about. It's just an overall unpleasant time to go through, and it hurts my eyes to look at for too long. Thankfully, most of the vestiges aren't too hard to nab, albeit they can be a little bit tough to see because they're red in a mostly red area, but one that'll likely give you trouble is Skatach Vestige B, which is up a ladder in this little isolated area by a wall of fire and a samurai mini-boss guarding you. And yeah, these ones are harder than average because everything is on fire and warm colors tend to blend in with other warm colors. And for some reason, you're still getting Queen Steel even though we're pretty far into the game. I doubt anyone's still using a +5 weapon at this point. And as an added treat, the bootleg bone wheels come back. I fucking hate this place. But when you see the attendant, her name's Thebe, rejoice, for you're at the end. Just make sure to fully repair the vestige before you go in and fight the boss. That'd be pretty embarrassing to screw yourself out of the good ending that way, especially when this boss is pretty easy. Traveling through Emily's memories reveals a few things such as her and Yakumo's time in the military, how they were killed and brought back as revenants, and that Juzo Mito is a complete and total asshole, if you still needed reminders of that for some reason. What is different, however, is Emily wasn't some carefully vetted person to become the next successor. Instead, she was merely one of Mito's test experiments as he removed the claw from within himself and forced it into Emily, making her become the next successor of the claw, because he's an asshole. And the Gilded Hunter we fought was simply another member of their platoon named Miguel, who got turned into a monster as well. And to no surprise, our next boss fight is against Emily, the successor of the Claw, looking like some kunoichi that's also a cat that's currently on fire and in possibly a gimp suit. I don't know, it's a big moan for Yakumo, but for everyone else it's kinda whatever, and we don't really have any relationship with Emily, nor do we know all that much about her, and her level is annoying. And I'm here to tell you the fight isn't much better. It's not some atrocious trash fire like the butterfly, but it's one of the most nothing fights in the entire game in my opinion, where she has a lot of attacks that you won't be dodging, but instead of doing absurd levels of damage, she does near non-existent damage and staggers easily, making for a pretty underwhelming fight. And I don't really care for her design either. It's the worst one by far. Ribcage looks like some sort of warp monstrosity, Breath looks like a young boy's idea of what's badass, and he's right. And the fourth successor also looks way cooler. This just looks like someone's weird, barely disguised fetish. After the fight's over, we learn Emily sacrificed herself to keep Yakumo's body safe, and we learn that Mito's idea is the evolution of humanity or some shit, if you somehow hadn't picked up on that with him repeating that more or less throughout the last 5 hours of game. At the end of it, we finally get to meet with her face to face, and it is cute how she's happy to have some of Yakumo's onigiri, but after that, it's whatever. Emily admits she's scared and she wants a hug as she turns to stone, which works fine, but then it does the stupid thing where she tries to confess her love, but turns to stone right before she can finish. But I mean, thankfully we've got a cure for that.
What?
That reaction's funny. But a part I absolutely hate here is she chickens out afterwards. Like, come on, game. What was the point of any of that then? And no, this relationship doesn't get followed up on, so it's a pretty lame ending, but what's even dumber is she's absent from the next cutscene, which is kind of important because this is when we meet the main villain.
That was such a moving scene. In fact, I almost found myself laughing.
Yeah, this scene doesn't account for whether or not you saved Emily, which makes things kinda dumb because she's nowhere to be seen during this scene where the main villain is here in the crypt with us, and this is the only successor that has a point where it doesn't account for those sorts of actions. Personally, I wonder if this place in particular had a bunch of cut development stuff.
It's no good!
Jack, my boy, you're late. How can you be slacking off when you've got such an important job?
I'm here to take back all of the relics you stole.
Oh, and do what with them exactly? After all, your vessel is broken.
What are you talking about?
Oh my, you didn't notice? I gave your precious Eva a little present. You're under the impression that you allowed her to escape. That is incorrect. I allowed her to escape.
That's...
I installed a prototype in that lovely throat of hers.
But then, that means she was already...
Damn you!
I imagine that she'll frenzy before long, and a frenzied relic will be compelled to seek Gregorio. Do you suppose she's already wandering the snow-capped mountains?
Mito! I'll
and see to the successors, won't you? As for me, I must say farewell to a certain dotard.
Get back here, you coward! It can't be. Eva!
I have to go find her.
Well, we've got our story objective to go find Eva, and the only place left that we can continue onwards is in the depths of that ice cavern behind the purple door. So, guess we better start heading on over that way. Just make sure before you leave to pick up the Eos vestige on your way out. These will be important eventually. To make progress, we need to go to the only place we couldn't progress through before, so head back to where the purple door was and you'll find it's open, and you head through another limestone cavern. But as you progress, you'll notice the land is rapidly becoming a desert. And then we run into Jack once again, and he mentions how this area is rapidly turning into a desert that resembles Eva's homeland. Now, you may be worried this area is gonna suck because desert levels are kind of not very good, but no, surprisingly this place is actually pretty cool. When we look around, there's sand, sand, and more sand. It's all turned to sand. But honestly, while this level isn't too long, it might actually be my favorite level in the game. This time around, we're hunting the Harmonia vestige, which belongs to Eva, and the enemies are a bit stronger than average, as you'll start seeing more acrobatic revenants that like to do these little flips and kicks, as well as rotten and decaying versions of those monsters from the pit that kind of resemble bugs. You'll see a hole in the ground that seems like the most obvious trap ever, but no, you jump in the hole. You get that item. Why? Because the treasure in the middle is a regen extension factor, bringing our max health uses even higher. This should be your 8th one, so that's going to be very helpful going forward. Now, a funny little obstacle in this area is the giant rolling sand boulders being spawned by an enemy at the top, which forces you to duck and dive through the side path so you can get to the top and face him. And honestly, I like this hazard. It's silly, but it's not a bad thing. It's fair, and it's pretty easy to get around, plus it makes for a unique set piece. The Dust Cloud Behemoths are also probably my favorite regular enemy in the game, with an awesome design, a cool moveset, and this level is where you're going to just start finding a lot of titanium as well, so you can now start upgrading your gear to +9 pretty easily. I wish I had more to say on this place, but this is actually one of the shorter levels in the game, so it won't be going on for nearly as long as, say, the Cathedral of Sacred Blood. It's not some ridiculous major difficulty spike. There's no cheap hazards thrown in either. All in all, I enjoy this level quite a bit. It's just not very long. It takes about 20 to 30 minutes to clear the entire thing. Now, as for the vestiges, we actually learn a fair bit about Eva. For example, she actually spent most of her life as a human, but she was taken as a blood mule by some revenants, and one of them got so pissed off by her seeing that they ended up crushing her throat, leaving her mute. In her second memory, we see she volunteered to become a successor, and interestingly, aside from Mito, most of the researchers seem to be on the up and up and genuinely trying to do the right thing, even warning her about the risks that go along with attempting to become a successor, and a revenant as well. But she volunteers and gains the ability to speak for the first time since she was a child, so she takes this chance to give her thanks to Jack for all he's done for her. And the final memory has her learning the harsh truth about how to seal the relics, which involves killing successors that have frenzied. It's not an ideal situation by any means, but simply them working with what they have. And with that, we've completed all 3 vestiges for Eva. It's time we head on towards our boss fight.
Eva. You don't have to fight anymore. Don't worry. It's all gonna be okay. I'll take on the relics now.
Don't try to stop me.
I love this boss fight. It's one of my favorites in the game. Not too difficult, but she puts up enough of a fight to be a fair challenge. A lot of her attacks are sand, and she can inflict leak, which causes you to drain Ichor, but instead of being some massive annoyance, it simply forces the player to either be more careful or be more aggressive if they're inflicted in order to win. Her attacks are cool, and the fight is one of the few that feels fair and well balanced, barring a certain tornado attack that always catches my ass. But I have to give praise to the music as well. Requiem is a beautiful song that really sets both the beauty and tragedy of this fight. Personally, across the 3 versions of it, my favorite is the one sung by her English voice actress. Overall though, this is an excellent boss fight. After that, you know what time it is. Time to view the last vestige memory of our final successor. And honestly, I'm gonna let this one play itself out. It's one of my favorite scenes in the entire game, and I think it's better that I don't talk over it.
When I first met Jack, I was just a possession owned by revenants. My throat was ruined. I couldn't even speak. But he took me in without a second thought. I always felt that I was in his debt. I have a naturally high compatibility, so if there's any way that my body could possibly be of use to him, then it is his, even if it costs me my humanity. You're finally awake, Jack. Are you still in pain?
I must have fallen asleep. I'm fine. Don't waste your voice on me. This isn't the time for it.
I'm afraid I can't obey that order. I enjoy singing for you too much. Don't blame yourself for this, Jack. You were always so kind to me. I have no regrets. Still, I wish I could sing for you one last time.
I've put you through far too much.
No, you haven't. When I first met you, I had absolutely nothing. You gave me the light of hope. And my voice. Please, don't be sad, Jack. From the moment I took on my role, I knew this would eventually be my fate. But I was still happy. Because I was with you.
Yeah. Me too.
Your mission is an important one. So go on, and burn bright, while the candle of life still burns.
Eva. Will you sing for me again? One last time?
Unfamiliar cadence, smell the scent of your youth, fragrant in the breeze. Sitting in your bedroom, all alone you wait to hear the sound of a door once locked, now opening. Every time your frozen memories come to thaw, bit by bit melts away, till there's nothing at all. Even when they're gone, you hold on so tightly to them. In your heart you will never forget. Birds sing in the distance, old familiar cadence. Smell the scent of your youth, fragrant in your sitting in your bedroom, all alone.
Thank you.
Hear the sound you've been longing for a lifetime.
The relics.
Eva!
Eva, she's back to normal.
Amazing. Did she resist the relic's effect? Maybe it's because we were there to treat her immediately.
Thank you. You held the threads of my tattered heart together.
Eva. I don't know what to say.
Would you let me stay with you a while longer?
Do you even need to ask?
And with that, we can now head off to the Crypt Spire. This is the in-game stretch. And we get 2 new party members in tow. Jack, who sucks, and if you restored her vestige, Eva will also join your party. She's a gunner, but she's not very strong, so she must suck, right? Well, no, she's actually really good. See, Mia is going to be the one doing the ranged damage, but Eva does a much better job staying alive and in turn keeping you alive. She's a great support party member that fits quite well into the team. Though she could definitely use a better outfit because she currently looks like she needs to see a battered women's shelter, which, honestly, given her story, probably isn't too far off. But before we do that, we're going to see a large uptick in difficulty for the final act of the game, and because of that, I highly recommend taking the chance to talk to everyone around base, work on learning some skills, and running through the depths to get your levels up a little bit if you haven't. As for the Ios vestige, we're going to learn a few things about Io and the attendants as well as power her up. Some of the attendants aren't very interesting, but Celine in particular, Nicola's attendant, has an interesting one where Nicola wanted her to live for herself, so she wandered around and tried to find meaning in her life, but ultimately was unable to do so. It's a shame because if she had a found family like Io did, she likely would have been able to live a fairly normal life, at least in this sort of post-apocalyptic landscape, but because she was on her own, all she could really do was uphold her mission. As for Thebe, Emily's attendant, she saw that Mito experimented on and carved up attendants in a pretty gruesome manner in his experiments, and in case you didn't hate the man enough, well, here's more stuff to hate him for. We also learned that Io was attacked by a frenzied attendant just before the game began. Remember this, it'll be important later. Kind of. Themisto isn't really anything too interesting outside of her begging for forgiveness and feeling pain when hearing the song Requiem. This isn't really explained too well in the game, but it's also a spoiler, so I'll have to wait until later to talk about it. I also recommend getting all your gear up to +9 as you're gonna need it. And I also would advise getting some items called Camouflage. They're very good for helping you get the drop on some tough fights, and there will be required enemy battles that can be made trivial with some good old stealth striking. One vestige that isn't really plot important, but I did want to show off, was the Nameless Successor's vestige, as he was the insatiable despot, or the original despot, as we fought a clone instead. It's not a grand or dramatic story. He lived a sad, short, and kind of pathetic life. Unfortunate, but all too real for a post-apocalyptic world, with him not even being important enough for anyone to have remembered his name before ultimately Jack cut him down. There does seem to be more hands than the actual despot, though, in the memory. So that's kind of neat, but not much to say here. And unlike the others, his vestige doesn't end with the doorway, but rather a staircase to heaven. Maybe it's implying that he finally found peace and went to heaven, but I don't think Christianity was a major part of this game's storyline, and really, it was probably just there because it looked unique. That or they were huge Led Zeppelin fans. And with that, welcome one and all to the Crypt Spire, the beginning of the endgame, and when I saw this place at my first playthrough, I was terrified it was going to be another Cathedral of Sacred Blood, but I'm happy to say that's not the case. It's far from an easy level, but the Crypt Spire is less about exploration and getting lost, and more about going from battle arena to battle arena, setting up shortcuts to simply give less battles you need to run through, and quicker paths back to areas you need to, which really makes it sound like a Souls-like level in general. But this one in particular has a higher emphasis on combat, so your enjoyment will vary depending on how your build is. Or you could just use camouflage to get the drop on your foes, or sneak past them entirely. The architecture is pretty similar to the Cathedral of Sacred Blood, with much harder enemies to contend with, so it seems intimidating, but trust me, you won't be getting lost in this place too terribly much. It's not that labyrinthian, it's actually quite straightforward. Now, if you explore off to some side paths, you'll find something interesting as you can see a massive missile. But you can't rest at it. Instead, though, if you interact with it, you'll find what is essentially the infinite homeward bone of the game, which is always useful to keep around in a Souls-like. Don't worry too much if you die here. While there may only be a missile near the start and end of the level, it's filled to the brim with shortcuts to get back, so there's really not that enemies you actually have to run past if you just decide to gun it. Plus, you can always use a handy dandy ladder to completely avoid all confrontation as long as they don't have spells to attack you with. Just remember to pick up the Argent Wolf key from your rematch with legally distinct Oliver Collins, as it is mandatory to progress, but really, this isn't too far out of the way, and it is pretty obvious that this guy stands out among the crowd of enemies here. And the enemies will try to jump you once you pull the lever right behind that door, but once again, we have ladders, so you can kind of break aggro that way. Just be mindful the samurai enemies can also throw lightning bolts, which will do a lot of damage, and they're the one guys that will still try to attack you. And once you get to the elevator and find a missile, rejoice, because you're at the end, and all it took was, 30 minutes? Pretty short and painless, to be perfectly honest. The camouflage goes a long way. Also, if you do go back to base after entering the Crib Spire, you'll be able to talk to Rin and finally be able to get her blood code Hephaestus. It's very useful for dex builds, but it mostly just exists to explain why she doesn't fight anymore, though I'll sum it up really quick. She has severe PTSD. There you go, now let's get ready for our boss fights. We confront Juzo Mito, ready to battle him, but he remembers we haven't had a Shameless Ornstein and Smo homage yet, so he aims to correct that.
But I'm afraid I'm on a tight schedule.
What the?
And how were they? The humble hors d'oeuvres that I so generously prepared for you.
All of the lost here. They were your experiments?
You're insane.
Ah, the main course has just arrived. Bon appetit.
So, now we do battle with the Blade Bearer and Cannoneer, a fight that, to be honest, I don't know how to feel about. At its best, it's one of the highlights of the game, but at its worst, it is abysmal dog shit, and sadly, there isn't a definitive version of this fight, which I'll explain more later. Just know that you don't get any brownie points for soloing the boss, just use party members like a sensible human being that works a job for a living, and get through it in a reasonably timely manner. I personally recommend Io, but there can also be merit in having Yakumo to tank damage, or Eva if you want to go all in on aggression and you just need someone for support. The duo isn't only slim and fat, but also a fire and ice duo, so pick whomever you want to die first. Personally, I prefer bringing down Cannoneer as his projectiles and lingering AoEs get a lot more dangerous. Meanwhile, Blade Bearer is tough, but she fights in a more traditional style, has lower health, and staggers far more easily. It's not a bad boss fight, but has issues, and a big issue is the Cannoneer's Flame Pillar attack, making the actual pillars in the arena mere set dressing most of the time. My feelings on this fight are complicated, but hey, at least the music's awesome and it doesn't interrupt halfway through with a worse song, so it's doing better than a lot of bosses in this game. Still, we have to confront Mito, who just got done cutting down a bunch of Argent Wolves. Here, we're given a ridiculously long cutscene before his boss fight where he does his human evolution spiel, as you'd expect from a villain voiced by Keith Silverstein, but he also drops some pretty big lore bombs on us about the catastrophe and how everything really got started and went to hell.
Aren't you forgetting something? The day of the Great Collapse. The creatures that caused all that ruin. Both Revenants and the Queen were created to eliminate those horrors. And yet, they are all still incomplete.
We get the chance to see what these horrors look like for ourselves, and this was pretty freaking crazy. See, Mito kills his 3 cheerleaders, taking their vestiges to poison Silva, leading to something of a terrible transformation happening to him. Which causes the red mist to fade, and what comes out to attack the Revenants? The fucking Diauspida from God Eater. No ifs, ands, buts, or ceremony, dude just showed up in a completely different game series and refuses to elaborate, just killing some dudes before eventually dying only because Silva's force of will is strong enough he was able to bring the mist back up while fighting off the frenzy all this time. Why? Because the dude's Chad.
Pity. Those who are too weak to keep up with the speed of progress do not deserve to live.
What swill?
We will stop you. After all they've done for everyone. The successors will not have suffered in vain.
And here we go. The fight with our main villain of the game. It's been built up since really Act 1. It's our big climactic showdown with a villain who's given us hell, and really all of our team hell in one way or another throughout the entire story. And it fucking sucks. This boss fight is a boom or bust glass cannon boss fight where he either kills you in one shot with his infinite combos, or he dies in under a minute because he has no health. This should be an epic battle against the main villain of the game, and I feel like at some point in development he was meant to be the final or penultimate boss fight. The music is awesome, but somewhere along the way the plan got axed and now he's fought fairly early into Act 3, but the entire battle, if you know what you're doing, is a pathetic joke. I mean, at least we get to kill him, but don't bother seeing his memories, just die, fucker. Also, if you saved Eva, this cutscene is going to be extended, but I don't know, man. This fight is just a massive letdown, but also an infuriating mess. I hate this boss. It's the worst in the game by far.
Are you sure? Physically, it is possible. You might be able to take on Silva's relic. But if you do, it will mean taking on Silva's mission as well. And that will not be an easy burden to bear.
Our world cannot survive without the power of the red mist. And that means you would have to sit on that throne forever.
So, after the boss fight against Mito is done, we can progress to the final two areas of the game. But, if you take this little back path, you'll find something special. There are 3 depths maps here that are special as they are how you access the 3 DLCs of the game. We have Fiery Oblivion, Celestial Ice Prison, and the Eternal Abyss. These DLCs are pretty damn disappointing, not gonna lie. To be honest, no real story is to be found here. They're just some levels with a few extra boss fights, and honestly, that's the most redeeming factor about them. I do want to tackle them now, however, I won't be going in release order. If you've seen my Dark Souls 2 video, which statistically speaking you likely haven't, hell, statistically speaking, you probably haven't seen this video either. These multi-hour videos perform terribly. But I'll be going in the order from, in my opinion, the worst DLC level to the best DLC level, and I'll be tackling the bosses at kind of when I feel you're ready to handle them. The Eternal Abyss was the final DLC released for Code Vein and was widely considered a massive disappointment for the few people who still cared, and Bamco more or less gave up by this point. There's no story to be found here, and quite frankly, its level design isn't doing anything special either. This DLC takes all of 8 minutes to complete, with 4 of those minutes being on the main boss fight. See, the DLCs are scaled for post-game builds that have gotten the true ending, outside of, oddly, the main bosses, so expect to take 2,000 damage from every hit, and the Dust Cloud Bandit will kill you multiple times, and his mooks spawn in as his big gimmick, where different HP levels happen. This DLC is by far the worst of the bunch, and its only redeeming quality is the primary boss fight, but we still have another mini-boss we need to talk about as well. The Queen's Vanguard yank isn't much better, just being an uninspired enemy from the Cathedral of Sacred Blood, but now doing enough damage to one-shot you, but also not being tanky at all. So, honestly, all things considered, it has an identical moveset to a regular enemy variant. And what sucks is the DLC mini-bosses can be seen actively getting worse as you go throughout the different DLCs, which I'll go into that a bit more when we tackle the other ones. We're not going to fight the end boss yet. I'll be saving him for later as he's hard and will necessitate a plus 10 weapon and plus 10 gear entirely. That being said, with the DLCs unlocked, I've also unlocked Eva's alternate costume, and yeah, she looks really snazzy. Anyways, on to the first DLC that was released, the Fiery Oblivion, and while it's definitely an unbalanced mess damage-wise and was poorly received for the lack of story, It does have slightly better mini-bosses and still had a little bit of goodwill since it was just the first DLC and people hoped maybe there'd be more for the future DLCs narrative-wise. Sadly, that didn't happen, and the enemies still do entirely too much fucking damage. The Blazing Heretic mini-boss looks wild, but really, he only stands out for two reasons. One, his lava-filled arena, and two being he does entirely too much damage being able to one-shot a level 200 player with Queenslayer equipped and plus 10 blood veils. It's not a fun time. But I am happy to say that the other mini-boss, the Abyssal Doppelganger, is way better. He seems like a generic enemy at first, but what's this? He has unique attacks? Yeah, he's a powerful mage with electricity attacks. But wait, after a bit of time passes, he mutates and pulls out a greatsword to crush his foes. Then he can swap back and forth throughout the fight. This fight is genuinely really fun with his offenses and defenses changing on the fly, so the player can either adapt to both forms or pick the one they feel more comfortable fighting and just stick to battling it. His damage is definitely still too high, but that's kind of a blanket complaint for the DLC levels and mini-bosses. If the DLCs were cheaper and had more mini-bosses like this guy, I think they would have been better received, but $10 per DLC when each one offers maybe 20 minutes of content unless you really like fighting the main bosses at the end over and over again, you're not getting your money's worth, and quite frankly, Code Vein had a lot of goodwill going out of it. Like when the base game was complete, it was still clunky, but a lot of people genuinely liked the game and thought pretty well of it. The DLCs pretty much went out of their way to burn any and all goodwill they had, so I'm honestly surprised we're even getting a sequel. I hope it's good. In terms of level design, the Celestial Ice Prison is probably my favorite of the DLCs, but my least favorite in terms of the boss fights. Still, as a positive, it has far more vertical design in the snow-covered area. Over it, what appears to be a dormant volcano. It's a pretty cool setting. There's also a bit more visual variety with this hot spring portion and different little snowfields, but unfortunately the mini-bosses leave something to be desired. The Mudgorger is just kind of annoying more than anything else. On the other hand, the Argent Wolf Berserker would be the same great fight you know and love if there weren't super annoying fire turret enemies above you that the lock-on just doesn't detect most of the time. Why would you do this game? But hey, I should fight at least one of these bosses right now, so let's tackle the worst, but also the easiest of the three main DLC bosses. The Frozen Empress is one of the three DLC super bosses, and it is certainly one of the video game bosses of all time. The Frozen Empress is one of the three horrors we face off against, which the horrors are modified origami from the God Eater series, so it's all too fitting that the one based off Marduk, my least favorite flagship, is also the worst horror. Now, damage-wise, the DLC bosses are surprisingly fair. They're aggressive, but they never do unreasonable damage like the rest of their DLCs. And if you want, you can pretty much go fight them whenever. You don't even have to really mess with the others, which I can respect that. But what falls apart is that this boss has a big gimmick around her two crystals that boost her attacks and fire off projectiles. And this is a boss that quickly turns into bullet hell, which could have been fun in a game with a better camera and arena, but here the camera is too zoomed in and you're constantly getting shot at from off screen. This isn't Yeast, so bullet hell bosses don't really work in this action RPG setting. And the projectiles are really annoying. You need to take down her crystals to stand a chance, but guess what? You can't lock onto them, so the best strategy is just kind of guess their path and R1 spam till you clip one and knock it down, and then from there go to town on the crystal till it breaks temporarily. But it comes back after about 30 seconds, so good luck. It's a shame, but the DLC with the best level design is also the one with the worst end boss by far, and it's also considerably easier than the other two. Once you take her down, you don't really get anything. Sort of. See, the DLCs have these challenges against the bosses, such as beat them without getting hit, survive 5 minutes, or beat the boss with just your starting pipe, etc. Each challenge you clear gives you a reward of either considerable or non-existent value, but this is how you get the alternate outfits for your party members. Either way, the other two fights are a lot harder in my opinion, so we'll save them for later, but they're also much better bosses. Now, back to the main story, we reach a place that looks awfully familiar. This is the very place where we fought the Queen's Knight and the Queen herself in the past, and now we're basically going to be playing the level in reverse as we see the giant big red deadly premonition tree. Okay, not exactly, but it looks like the deadly premonition box art, doesn't it? Anyways, don't think I mean any of this is a bad thing though. I actually like the trope of revisiting early game levels in the end game after some massive catastrophic event strikes. It acts as both a look how far we've come and also really hammers home how dire the situation has gotten depending on the game. A lot of the enemies you'll see here are just enhanced versions of regular enemies, but now the Argent Wolves are joining the ranks of the Lost and starting to go berserk. I definitely recommend keeping on the lookout, however, as this area houses the final region expansion, bringing us up to 10 legally distinct Estus flasks. It also holds an Eos vestige, and I will mention now the Eos vestige is the last of the 3 steps required to get the game's good ending. The first step is beating the Queen's Knight and getting the Queenslayer vestige, which isn't technically missable, but a big pain in the ass if you don't get it now. And the second step is saving the 4 successors, which means finding and completing all of the vestiges. And this is the roughest step, as you can screw yourself out of it if you kill a boss before completing their vestige. The last step is completing the Eos vestige, which technically isn't required for the best ending, but if you want to get all of the cutscenes associated with it, you need to do that. And it seems like it'd be really hard to do, but outside of Eos Vestige 5, every single Eos vestige is on or pretty close to the beaten path, and even if you miss one, it's not technically missable content, as the final boss will respawn after the credits roll, so you can just go find the vestige, complete it, and then fight the boss again if you wish. But overall, this level is pretty fun and basically the war in reverse, but it also means we have a tough boss fight at the end who you can probably guess who it's gonna be. The gatekeeper to Code Vein's final dungeon, the Queen's Knight Reborn, is basically kicking things off in phase 2 of the first fight, with all the warp combos and attacks you'd expect, but he has a few other tricks up his sleeve once you get him to a second phase. He always begins with a warp attack, and now just expected to be thrown into everything he can do. It doesn't break the lock, which is nice, but it also means that nowhere is safe from this boss, and you can't just camp him out or range him out. All the while, he emits a nasty aura that can build up the leak status effect on players, and is able to create waves of blood. It's a really tough fight, but his health is still pretty low for an in-game boss, though it's not as drastic as the likes of Juzo Mito. On one hand, he's not going to be one-shotting you, but on the other hand, he's also not falling instantly because his defenses aren't shit, and he does have more HP, plus the warping does give him good mobility. Overall, I like this boss fight. It's a lot of fun.
Wait a moment. That Lost left a vestige behind. There is something somehow familiar about it. I would like to know what memories it contains. Would you show them to me?
This final vestige shows us someone else's memories. The memories of Cruz Silva as she's desperately trying not to frenzy in an ultimately losing battle. It's a genuinely sad scene, and you can hear the fear and despair in her voice as she keeps fighting as long as she can, but she realizes she's not going to make it. And her final act was creating the attendants to try and help ease the burden of the successors, to also help the people, and the reason why Requiem brought so much pain to that one attendant was because the song reminded her of Cruz's sins. So we finally get some answers on Io's life, and the reason why Io wasn't as affected by the song is because she lost her memories. And yeah, these cutscenes definitely feel like they were made much later in development with less dev time, because it's really awkward how no one acknowledges Io traveling with the party, and it's a shame because she's honestly one of the best written characters in this game, and it's kind of cool having her arc basically being her finding meaning in her life. But with that, we get Cruz's very own blood code, Ishtar, which is a very self-sacrificial blood code, great for online play, kind of useless for single player. All that's left is the final dungeon of the game. As we make our way to the final dungeon, make sure you pick up the item on the ground, as it's a depths map to the Zero District. This one is special as it gives us an infinite supply of tungsten, which is how you max out your equipment at plus 10. After that, though, the building becomes less and less conventional and more warped, almost looking like organic but metal at the same time. I highly recommend bringing along Io, as she's not only the best party member, but she has a ton of unique dialogue for this dungeon, so it's worth having her come with you. And so we enter the final level of the game, the Provisional Government Center, a behemoth of a level rivaling even the likes of the Cathedral of Sacred Blood. On paper. Don't worry, unlike that level, this one isn't out to screw you over and get you lost for hours on end. This place has enough different visuals to it that you shouldn't get too lost, and while we do need to pick up 2 Eos vestiges for the good ending, it's not as bad as it sounds. One of them is impossible to miss, and the other one is at the very end of the level. Really, this dungeon is just going to be one final challenge for the player to overcome, and I like that. You'll see most enemies in the game show up here, with the Argent Wolves making up the main hostile force, with a few that have rapidly begun to mutate into the Lost. It's pretty grim.
I can still recall when I first went outside with you. When I was looking for you, I didn't feel that strange vibration inside of me. I hope that the memory remains within you as well.
We actually run into a guy named Dominic, one of the few humans in this game, and he was Silva's right-hand man. We learned that there's 3 documents he wants us to find in this dungeon. Don't worry, there aren't any endings tied to this, but it does provide some nifty rewards and a bit of extra lore, so I will be collecting them all. And now we know why the otherwise pretty friendly Argent Wolves are attacking us. The Lost in here were all revenants that recently frenzied after Mito, the douchebag, went and poisoned Silva, which led to him to start frenzying, and since he's sitting on the Blood Throne, yes, you're required to say it dramatically, all the other revenants in the area were basically given a bad dose of bath salts without their consent. Honestly, I'm not sure what the general consensus is on this level, but I actually like it and I think it's a good final dungeon, even if it has the weird geometric cube thing going on that JRPGs love to do for some reason. Overall though, I wish this game's level had music, even if it was just some soft ambience. I think that would have added a ton to this game's world, because wandering through the place in total silence only holds the appeal for so long, and that's kind of an issue with basically every level in this game. Camouflage is also really useful in this dungeon for getting the drop on tough enemies and making pancakes out of them. Yes, I love the comedically large hammer weapons in this game. They're my favorite weapon type. And I haven't really acknowledged it, but the spikes in the walls are, well, a hazard. You'll understand very quickly that a broken wall equals a bad time. You either need to dodge roll past them or just avoid them.
If I had never met you, there would have been no one to teach me to fight so hard. You have helped me become this strong. I am truly grateful I met you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Cool detail I didn't notice till now is that your character slides down the side of the ladder, which is how you don't overlap with your companions, which is just a neat little nice touch in my opinion. Also, in terms of world building, while it may be a bit weird that certain ladders and doors are locked in this place, I'm willing to give it a pass here. See, things went to shit over the course of essentially just a few hours at most, so it stands to reason that the people that tried to escape put up whatever barricades or obstructions they could to stop the lost revenants from advancing and getting to them. Unfortunately, that also likely led to many of them getting trapped inside and slaughtered. Also, the Lost Argent Wolf isn't a boss fight, but he can put up a serious challenge and is in my opinion the single toughest normal enemy in the game, so be careful. In fact, I'd go so far as to say he's tougher than the boss that's following. I will warn you though, once you see an attendant posted up like she's ready to fight, I highly recommend finding the missile because we've still got a ways to go and it would suck to die, plus this is a little over halfway through the dungeon. That being said, you're not going to die. Calling the attendant of the relics a lore fodder boss would be generous, as she's out here making Oliver Collins look tanky. Sure, she has more health, but her defenses are worse, and that was the first boss. This is the second to last mandatory battle in the game. Oh, and by the way, if you've been watching, the fight's already over.
I do not know what awaits us at the end, but I will stand at your side until it is all over. I will fight. That much I do know.
After the attendant is dealt with, we are getting pretty close to the end. In fact, as far as required level design goes, the elevator to the final boss is right in front of us, but I'm going to recommend you explore the optional branches a bit, as this final stretch does have some good upgrades to get. The attendant we fought will give us our 6th Eos vestige, but we have to explore a bit to find the 7th and final one. And by a bit, I literally mean just take a right turn before getting on the elevator and then take a left turn before going down the ladder. That's the last thing we need for the game's best ending, so all we need to do is finish and restore the vestige, which you could do with the Nameless Attendant, but I actually recommend doing it with Io for some more story dialogue. Also, there is one last thing here you want to fight. The Argent Wolf Berserker is here as one of our final optional challenges, now scaled up to the end game, and you really want to kill this guy, because if you do, you'll find yourself a 6th regen activation factor that wasn't mentioned at all in the guide I was using to make sure I picked up everything, so that sucks, but hey, a little bit stronger healing for the end game sounds like a win to me. Otherwise, once we run down that elevator, we're at the final boss's doorstep, so it's time to do a little bit of wrap up around the world. First off, give the reports to Dominic where we learn a lot.
Let's see. You found documents of boar parasite compatibility. Back then, we needed cooperation from revenants with high compatibility more than anything. Around that time, we got a report about a girl whose compatibility was off the charts. Her name was Cruz Silva, Gregorio Silva's daughter, the person who would later become the Queen. Silva is a parent. No parent would want their child to be the subject of an experiment. But Cruz was adamant. She wanted to save people, and so she volunteered for the research. Her compatibility made everything go smoothly, and many advances that were made still help us today. But then, she frenzied. In a word, these are written directives from Operation Queenslayer. When Silva was still human, he told me to follow them if something happened to him. When Silva died during the Queen's frenzy, we turned him into a revenant as quickly as we could. He awakened immediately and set out to eliminate her. To me, it seemed like he cast aside all his personal feelings toward his daughter at that moment. Do you find it strange for a human to be here? Silva unequivocally told me that I mustn't become a revenant. He said that if revenants could resolve the situation, then a human point of view would be necessary. I never thought that would come to pass, though. I was expecting to live out my remaining days in peace. Life does take unexpected turns. Thank you. This is a survey report on the Red Mist. Silva turned himself into a successor and used his power to create the Red Mist. The most important reason to maintain the Red Mist is to ensure the Queen's power spreads no further. However, Silva continually expends a great deal of energy to do this. Thus, the levy system was put into place in order to ensure the blood that he requires. The Red Mist, the levy system, and his research. Silva has done all of this for the sake of revenants.
It's a shame that Silva's story is so easy to miss because he's genuinely one of the best characters in the game, but unless you do this side quest and restore some random vestiges, you just miss everything and he's just a final boss voiced by DC Douglas. Now, for some extra in-game preparation, you'll probably want to head to the Zero District from that depths map you got and repeatedly fight the Queen's Knight Reborn. His stats are a bit higher than in the story, but he drops 2 tungsten every time he's killed, as well as a fair amount of haze, meaning he's the best way to max out your gear as he gives you the upgrades and the haze needed to perform said upgrades, and even elemental infusing if you so wish. If you're trying to prep for the endgame and the super bosses, this is where you should do it. Now onto the super bosses. First up on our chopping block is actually the final DLC boss that was released. So, does it live up to being the game's grand finale? No, not at all. But it isn't bad. The Lord of Thunder is a Diauspida through and through with wing and claw swipes, and as well as being super mobile. However, despite his massive health pool, he's got a giant hitbox and he's super weak to ice, meaning you can actually chunk him down fairly quickly. And I don't know if it's because I fought him the most out of the DLC bosses, but I always found him the easiest of the 3 horrors to beat. Well, once you learn the fight at least. On top of that, his music being an orchestral remix of Beyond Fear is a pretty good boss theme. If you were fighting this last, it would make for some solid bookending, but overall it's just kind of an okay fight. But who cares about any of that crap? He's got a Thomas the Tank Engine mod and somehow this fight is still playable, which makes him an automatic 10 out of 10 perfect fight. But in all seriousness, I do think he's one of the game's better bosses, but a fairly lame cap-off to the final DLC. Now, an interesting one is actually in the Void District, the final base game depths map. You'll come across the Blade Bearer and Cannoneer once again as your final challenge, and the base game super boss. With a combined health total of over 100,000, they're stronger than any main story fight, and with the arena being much more cramped, the fight can definitely be a clusterfuck, which is a shame because this fight is actually pretty cool and has a nice trick up its sleeve. And that trick is when one of the fighters goes down, much like the ONS duo they're inspired by, the survivor will take their powers and add it to their own, making for a new phase 2 to fight with some unique attacks. And overall, this phase is honestly a ton of fun. It's just a shame that the first phase is such a mess. The game was so close to having a Demon Prince, but instead they end up with just a pretty okay fight with zero story and a reward that isn't worth it. Because it's just the same thing you got from Queen's Knight Reborn in the Zero District. But our final battle is special. The Hellfire Knight is the first of the 3 horrors you can face, but in my opinion, he's also the strongest of the 3. He's a brutal opponent with quick punches and tail swipes, and despite most RPGs having fire enemies be weak to ice or water attacks, his weakness is lightning, which is definitely different, but alright, I'll play ball. Also, did you know you can parry his punch attacks? I sure didn't. But hey, it's a cool detail. But of course, Phase 1 is the basic introduction. Phase 2 is where everything gets crazy. This is probably my favorite boss in the game. It's extremely tough, but it's fast-paced, decently balanced, and has some of the coolest attacks in the game, plus an armored Hannibal that creates flaming lightsabers is just cool. It feels like a knight fight, but also like a beast fight all in one, and his design makes me think of Malekith from Elden Ring nowadays, but I actually vastly prefer this fight over Malekith. It's an excellent boss that stands out among the roster. Once you've completed the 3 DLCs and you've pieced together the Asclepius vestige, this allows you to actually see the final scene with Valerio, and we learn about the first successor that Jack had to kill.
Oh, you're finally here. You're awfully late, Teach. Tea's gone cold.
Sorry. It's been a while.
Arriving late to an appointment. That's my job, isn't it?
Yeah. I guess so.
Well, not that I mind it every now and then. The waiting wasn't that bad.
I see.
So, you'll finish me off quick as well? What's wrong? Just do it. You will prove your resolve for the rookie you killed too.
Yeah. I will.
you. Jack?
Goodbye.
It's cool, I just wish it wasn't the only story we got from $25 of DLC, when really, unless you want to fight the bosses over and over, all 3 of them maybe lasted an hour total combined. Otherwise, there's the Eos Vestiges, where we learn 3 things. Eos Vestige 5 doesn't show too much special, but an unfortunately common reality where many attendants were cut down before they could even find their successor with no will of their own, since they were just sad husks. Vestige 6 shows an attendant that frenzied, the one that we fought as a boss fight, and we don't know which successor she had, but we don't really have much else to go off of. Really, all this shows is an attendant frenzying. And Vestige 7 shows an attendant dying in her final moments, seemingly at peace with the fact that she was able to ease the suffering of her successor. Again, we don't know who it was, all we have to go off of is Io wondering why they keep throwing their lives away meaninglessly. Now, with all that done, it's time to confront the endgame, but first, the world's longest elevator ride. For those who haven't played Code Vein, well, this one's a bit of a meme for taking the better part of an entire minute to get to the next location. A bizarre choice indeed, and I wonder if this was really just like a loading screen or something. Anyways, yeah, we're coming up on the end of the game. There's no more levels left and no more Superbosses to face. But once we get to the bottom, Io shows her resolve to the other attendants, and she was different from the other attendants as she got to see the world, had a found family, and was able to think for herself. And I can think of no one better to take with me to the final battle than her.
I do not wish to cling to a futile mission out of fear and let myself stand by, hoping for a peaceful ending. I will struggle. I will fight. Against Cruz's sin, and against my duty. What it means to be alive. Io, it's true, there does seem to be something different within you. Something that sets you apart from the other attendants. Very well. I bequeath all to you. And so, I beg of you, please, save everyone.
And with that, we enter the Jail of Stagnant Blood, our final boss arena. The Skull King is the hardest mandatory boss in the game, but in a good way. This is your grand final challenge and is one of the 2 bosses I think can stand toe-to-toe with some of the best of From Software's library. He's definitely on the lower end of that upper echelon, but he's still there at all. And honestly, while I said Hellfire Knight was my favorite boss, this one might be better. If you were to ask me again, I don't know. Both fights are some amazing 9 out of 10 battles, brought lower simply because of the clunky game they're in. And, well, All of You is my favorite song in the game. Blue Blooded is my favorite boss theme. It's honestly one of the most underrated final boss themes in any video game, in my opinion. It does not get the love it deserves, and this fight is extremely hard, even with party members, but it feels completely fair and well paced, with him progressively getting stronger as the battle begins and goes on. He'll begin to draw upon the powers of the Vestiges more and more, and he still plays by the rules with his own sort of way. He's got a set of attacks, skills, and his Twin Hound's Blood Veil for his signature attack. This fight's a tough one, but honestly, if you didn't drop the game after the Cathedral of Sacred Blood, you owe it to yourself to see this game through to the end, just to fight this boss. But while this may be the normal final boss, the true ending will hold one last challenge for you.
No. Silva has lost control of the relic.
What's wrong?
Silva is pulling in the relics.
The final battle, the Virgin Born. An unholy result of Gregorio Silva taking all the vestiges and the monstrous power of his daughter Cruz. And a detail I love is how his blood is blue, unlike other enemies in the game, which makes the battle arena get more visually distinct as you tear into him, so more blue starts to fill the arena. This fight is a bit janky, but it's also considerably easier than the previous fight with lower stats as well. His attacks look cool, but he's more focused on being a spectacle than a tough final challenge, and I'm okay with that. We've had our tough final battle. Now we have our victory lap. Let's enjoy it, shall we?
don't have a lot of time. Hey, kid, can you handle this?
It's all right.
Hey!
Huh?
Io.
In the end, no matter who I may be, even if I serve as little more than an empty vessel, you have stored so many precious memories inside of my heart, and I promise I will never allow them to fade away. Whatever happens, I will always be with you. Just as you will always be within my heart. And now, goodbye.
If you completed the Eos vestige after doing all the other true ending stuff, you'll be teleported back to the hub world. Apparently a few years in the future? I don't know, it's weird. I think it was meant to be like a Chrono Trigger or Earthbound style ending where you get to play out your victory, but with the way the dialogue is, it makes it act like years have passed, and while some characters are talking to you about recent events, you have some of them like Louis that honestly sound like they're doing some sort of narration as the camera pans up to the sky. I honestly wonder if this part got rushed out as well, which unfortunately would not surprise me. The most notable dialogue though comes from Rin as she actually acknowledges the Amber Blood Bead, which is a bit special. But when you're ready to roll credits, simply interact with the door and get your special epilogue scene. You've earned it.
You're leaving into the outside world? Yeah, I figured that's what you would do. I can't say I approve of you heading out alone, though.
At least say something before you go. After all, we're supposed to be friends, right?
And since you guys insist on charging ahead all the time, you're going to need someone to keep things running smoothly.
To be honest, I'm not sure how welcome revenants will be in the outside world. But we have to keep reminding ourselves that we were all created for a reason. I'll carry on Cruz's dream. Just like you carried Io's. Let's go.
Io!
And so, Code Vein comes to an end. Definitely a janky game, but I'd be lying if I said I had a bad time. It's not a must-play by any means, but I would say it was the first Souls-like to come out in a post-Dark Souls 3 world that was actually fairly decent, because Lords of the Fallen and The Surge both sucked big time. And no, I don't count a game like Hollow Knight because that's just stupid. It's a 2D Metroidvania without an RPG leveling system. You'd be better off calling Castlevania, like the Igavania games, a Metroid or Souls-like at that point. Hollow Knight's a Metroidvania with autosaves instead of manual save rooms. Anyways, rambling. I had a fun time revisiting this game. It's definitely a lot rougher around the edges than teenage me remembered, and I think if they were going to lean into the anime aspect, they should have just had more anime cutscenes. Like, the God Eater games, each of them had a few. So it's a bit of a shame that outside of the opening made by Ufotable, which, yeah, is really cool because Ufotable is unlimited budget, we don't really have much of that. And while some of the cutscenes do look cool, a lot of them are really just people standing around, and I don't know. Yeah, that also happened in Dark Souls, but in Dark Souls, conversations were usually pretty short, never going on more than about a minute, maybe 90 seconds. They were to the point. Here, you can get some pretty talky scenes that go on for minutes on end, like Juzo Mito's cutscene. I'm not kidding, that's the better part of 9 minutes before the boss fight begins. I mean, I'm kind of just rambling. I've ran out of script at this point, so I don't know. It was kind of an interesting thing when I played this game. See, I remember really liking thinking, okay, well, this will be fun to revisit. Plus, I did recently replay Scarlet Nexus, and I do still really like that game. That one's highly underrated. Maybe I'll make a video on it in the future, not sure. I thought, okay, well, this will probably be pretty good as well, because, you know, I've played the anime Monster Hunter games, God Eater, those are good. But yeah, at first I played it, and I was like, okay, yep, having fun, but then that portion basically from the dried up like Butterfly of Delirium to more or less Cathedral, yeah, there was a lot of rough points. I couldn't exactly say I was having a ton of fun, and I was really worried that, oh, maybe this game's not nearly as good as I remember, and maybe it just wasn't fun at all. I was kind of wondering, like, am I gonna drop this game? But I did stick it out, and I'm really glad I ended up doing so, because I think Successor of the Breath was a big turning point where I was having a lot of fun with the game again. And it's kind of this weird thing. I definitely do think the second half of the game is much stronger than the first half. It's not to some Dark Souls 3 thing where the first half is just kind of okay, and the second half is one of the greatest games ever made. It's more like the first half is pretty mediocre, and the second half is pretty fun. But yeah, I did stick it out, and I'm glad I did. I had a fun time with it. I do think the DLCs are definitely a net negative on the game, though. If the game didn't have the DLC, or if it was just a single $10 DLC for 3 depths maps, people would have been sad that no story, but I mean, that would have been a fine price. But $25 to $30 for that is just freaking ridiculous. I don't know. I'm rambling at this point. I don't really have any special thanks or anything. This was a pretty quick production. I did it, you know, on my own, all that stuff. So, I mean, it was a fun time overall. So, on that note, I thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you want to see more videos like this, well, I've made plenty of them. Granted, this was the first one that was super cutscene heavy I've covered, so I'm kind of still testing the waters on how I'm going to handle that, so sorry if there's just a bunch of cutscenes without me talking in this video. But either way, I've covered games like the entire Dark Souls trilogy, Halo, Titanfall 2, Kirby, Spectrobes, and more as well. Also, plenty of other videos like boss rankings and the worst difficulty spikes in gaming videos. Regardless, I thank you for watching this video. If you want to see more content of varying quality, consider liking and subscribing, and I'll see you all next time. Until then, take care, everyone.